Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast.
Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, David.
I'm bringing us back old school tonight. That is the goal here. It's been an interesting. I actually didn't get the last episode out yet. It's been an interesting couple of weeks since the last episode.
Yeah.
A lot of shit's gone on. I bought the couch. The couch is back there.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
I
have a piece of furniture coming.
Doesn't surprise me.
Not here.
It's that time of year, you know?
Yeah.
So, first thing I want to show for the what's new. This is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing I have ever had for a what's new. These came in.
Oh, so, I want to order one.
Yeah, so. No, we're not selling, but I'll send you one.
Yeah.
So,
I'll my address.
There's the back.
Nice.
There's the front.
Yeah.
Okay. And because people have been asking, did you get a printed CD as well? Hell yes, we did.
Hell yeah.
So I've got 50 of them sitting next to me.
So now you have 49.
I actually have 48, I think now. Because I think, so 47 if you count that one. But it's been a long road, man, to get here. I gotta admit, like, this is the first time I've actually professionally printed a CD. And I was a little like, the hell is this going to look like when it shows up? And I opened it and I was like, yeah, it looks just like I thought it would. All right, great.
Yep.
I was very, very happy with myself, but I'm also in the same, I took a moment and I was like, it's been a long time getting here. And not just the last year working with this band, but like,
right.
Thinking about the fact that I've been playing music for almost 20 years and have never put out a physical anything. You know,
I haven't put out a physical thing since 1987.
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Let's just say that when I did it,
as long as I've been alive,
it was cassette.
Yeah,
when I did. 8-track was out, and nobody was doing vinyl anymore. Not really at that level.
Yeah,
and the truth of the matter is that. CDs were still cost prohibitive for getting them printed.
Right. Well, so this cost us $2 a disc.
Yeah. I bet you I would have spent like $35 a disc to get them at my level, because I've only,
Back in the day, it was grossly expensive. I remember getting a CD duplicator from work. They gave me one because they were getting rid of it. And I was like, if I do another project, I'm just going to duplicate my own CDs. These are not burnt CDs. These are actual, like, printed.
Yeah, those are professionally done, printed.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Yeah. Everybody I knew when I was growing up, they all had like their own CD and they were putting their own labels on there. And
I had to buy a printer and it was mass printing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had. So I was in a country band. Now I was not part of the recording, but I did tour with them and I was the bass player, and I did autograph a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And that was a professionally printed one. I still have a few of them here. Not a lot, maybe 2 or 3. And we actually had some good music. I've had people go, wow, I know that song, don't I? I go, yeah, probably heard it on the radio, but they didn't. All of us had day jobs that were too much money to go on a national tour. So we did what they call a regional tour. And,
So, Jim, I'm going to let you do your what's new, and then I'm going to give my apology to the world. And
okay.
It's going to be good, folks. You want to hear this because I don't normally apologize.
Yeah. So my what's new, I want to preface this with, David told me not to do this, but my son told me not to do this. I got a lot of people that said, don't do it because it's so niche that, for the amount of money that you're spending, there's the you could buy a chorus pedal or whatever and do the same thing. Now that said, when I played, and I'm going to give a hint to what it is and then show it. When I played Wanted Dead or Alive live on this thing, it was there. I was Richie Sambora, baby.
There's so much
All right,
cheese.
here we go.
So much
I know.
cheese.
So much cheese. And I know the guys at 60 Cycle Hum love these
Oh yeah.
because they love being different. So I got one of these. It is a Rickenbacker 3030-12. And it's in a beautiful fire glow.
A lacquered rosewood fretboard.
A lacquered
You don't
rosewood
get you don't get any fucking weirder than that, folks.
Who lacquers a rosewood fretboard?
Rickenbacker.
Rickenbacker does. Dual action truss rods, 2 of them, because you've got about 10,000 pounds of pressure, whatever it is on this thing. And the weirdest headstock. Bring this over. So you've got tuners going this way and tuners way.
And the thing only the neck on that weighs about 12 pounds.
This is extremely light. So this whole guitar weighs under 8 pounds.
Yeah,
7
it's all
pounds.
it's all the tuners.
Yeah. If it didn't have this many tuners, it'd probably weigh closer to 7 pounds. Or I mean 6 pounds.
I thought that was a 9-pounder.
Nope. This is 7 pounds 14. No. 7 pounds 8 ounces. This is under 8 pounds. And it is very, very.
Yeah, put in
here I am
perspective,
throwing around like you guys can feel it.
My PRC that I just got was 7 pounds 4 ounces. So just to put that in perspective, if you know what a C is like, that's actually
this thing is
right in the
truly,
ballpark.
so obviously there's a center, but they don't do a center block as I sent to you. So their seam, making sure I don't hit the headstock on it. So their seam is actually up here, not down here. And so the way they do it, no, the other way. It is down there instead of up here. And so the way they do it, they gut the guitar top so that everything, or no, back, so that everything is routed out. Then they glue a top down.
Yeah, but
and so
there's no center block of wood, but there is center mass.
There's center mass, exactly. And so what it is they, and I sent you the video on it. So if you get a chance to, the listeners, watch the Rickenbacker where they do the factory tour. So you can see the seam right along here, and what they do is they gut the guitar in place and then glue a piece of wood down. And so unlike the other ones, there isn't like a piece that this is not separate wood along the edges.
Well, you've got 2 pieces of wood there. It's just you don't have a set. You don't have a separate. It's not like an acoustic guitar kind of construction,
right?
Where you have a round piece that's on the side that goes all the way around the guitar,
right?
And then gets bound on both in front and back,
right?
So that
this is
all looks
part
nice.
of the back,
right?
So it's like a bowl, and then they glue a top to the bowl. So it's pretty cool. It was a pretty cool process. This, I'm still trying to get used to using this, the blend knob. So as you can see, I had it in the neck position. I just left it there. I did not play it in the middle position.
They're jangly, very high, like they're much more like a single coil, like from a Strat than people realize in the bridge.
They're a high output Strat pickup is what it's like.
Basically.
And really nice. Intonating it, not so much a breeze.
They're not the most fun guitars in the world to deal with, especially.
But I can tell you this, of course, it's hard. This camera is not great in its position, but this action is extremely low, and this neck is arrow straight. This was the best setup out of the box, other than my SG, that I've had in a long time. The SG, though, I changed the strings, and it started to give me a little where I need to tweak the neck. This guy has been rock solid. But then again, if you think I'm changing the strings on this anytime soon,
that's what I told you. That's what I told you. I told you you're not going to want to deal with it because they're a pain in the ass. That's why people leave the strings on them until they rust and break. I've seen people playing like 8 strings on a 12 string because they just refuse to do anything with it.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy. It might be that they route the back and then because I'm looking at the seams, it looks like they route the
I
electronics
believe it's the back that they
and
route
they
out.
glue the back on. Yeah,
Yeah. So
and the
just
front
to
is the bowl.
just to share a little bit more, there's actually like 3 different construction methods you could do for a semi hollow like that. And
Right.
PRS in their hollow bodies, they're true hollow bodies. They actually route
Right.
out the entire inside of one piece of wood. And I don't even think they're sandwiched together. Maybe the top is, but it's like it is an extraordinary way that they do it because it's basically a one piece body that's routed out instead of being separate pieces glued together. And it's very
Right.
similar to how Rickenbacker does theirs.
Correct. That's what
Um,
I was going to say. Very similar.
except no center block, which
Right.
is really the difference. Your pickups are mounted in wood, but they're not mounted in a center block.
Right. Right. So
Um,
what they've done is they've left that, like you said, they've left that in this guitar. They've left
mhm,
that block of wood down the center. But
yeah,
it's not like in Gibson and other brands where they glue a block of wood
right,
in the center
yeah.
and they route that block of wood.
Yeah, and I think there's advantages and disadvantages to each.
Yeah, to both. Yeah.
Um, I think solid body guitars are the easiest to care for. Semi hollows are next in line, and then of course hollow bodies are probably the hardest to care for.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
depending on how they're constructed. I think the Gibson style of construction is more prone to like moisture and that kind of stuff over time. So if you have one of those guitars for 40 years, there's
Yeah.
chances that your top may need some work and that kind of stuff.
And I've
And
got
it
to
really depends on the
apologize.
style of arch top too. So
Right. I've got to apologize to everybody that can hear the motor noise. I have a
can't hear anything.
humidifier that's running. And right now, the way the temperatures are outside with the heat running, it gets too dry too fast. And I have that, and I have that one, and I have the Taylor, and I have
Yeah.
the my son's Gretsch. Too many hollow bodies to let this place get dry for any length of time. I keep it
Okay.
between 40 and 60, usually around 50.
Yeah, you want to be right around 15, between 40 and 60, somewhere in that ballpark. So, I'm gonna kick off my apology tour here.
I think
Uh,
that's my what's new.
yeah, because I thought you were done. Do you have anything else? You sure you don't have anything else?
All right. Yeah, that's it. I
All
mean, there's a
right.
case.
So
It comes
part
in a Rickenbacker case.
the part of this episode that I have been looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
For anybody who tuned in to our live stream, thank you for doing that. First and foremost,
Yep.
we're going to talk about the gig report. Well, I'll talk about the actual nuts and bolts of the live stream, how I felt about it playing and all that kind of stuff. But the in between song banter, when you're put into a position like most band members don't get put into a position where somebody says, we want you to interact with people in the audience like on a direct person to person basis from the stage. And it's one of those weird moments, right, where you're like, and of course I'm going, I've done Twitch, like I'm used to that kind of thing. And of course my co-host had already worked up some banter. I wanted to apologize to him first because he starts talking and he starts telling stories about the songs. And I'm like, well, actually, kind of correcting him on a few things because he makes some assumptions that some of the songs that are on this EP were written for this EP or written right around the time this EP was written. And some of these songs are like 2-3 years old.
Right.
And I kind of set the record straight and I felt like a complete dick for just like getting in the middle of it. But I told a couple of stories too. And they came off, I think, to some folks as being a little antagonistic. The relationship between Tony and I is great.
Mm.
I want to start off by saying that. And of course, Jerry's there as well. He's our hired drummer. So if you didn't know that relationship and how that works, that's how that works. So Tony and I actually already talked about this, and I personally apologized to him. So I want everybody to know that first and foremost. Like, I took him aside and said, hey, I didn't really want to like get in the middle of it. I was just trying to be silly. Like there were a couple of things because he was coming off as being super like, I don't know, super serious about everything. And I think there's a lot of humor in the style of music we're doing. Not so much the music itself. I think some of the lyrics are very serious. But when you have a song like The Claw, I mean, come on. We know that's a joke. Everybody knows that's a joke. So I kind of interjected and said some things that were probably a little, I guess what I want to say, like they weren't flattering. Okay, they made me come off like a dick. Now, if you've been listening to this show for the last couple of years, yeah, I'm opinionated. I don't normally apologize. I am here apologizing because even I watched it and went, it's a little murky. But there's one thing in particular that I do want to talk about. And I am going to apologize for it because it was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But I'm also going to explain why I did. Because I think that provides some context and maybe can get some people into a different headspace in terms of how they think about their behavior in a live stream. And I'm not talking about specifically anybody from the show that I knew that they were doing or whatever, but it's just really like a general community thing. By the way, you can hear my bird clock going off back there.
Yeah.
I am freaking thrilled. My bird clock from when I was 12 years old still works. And I put batteries in it and now it's chirping. And that is, I'm 37 years old. So I'm like, that's a 20-year-old Walmart clock that still works. It's fantastic. So yeah, I'm tickled to death. You're going to hear that on the episode probably twice if we go long enough. So, all right. So the comment I made on the show, there was somebody in chat who said something to the equivalent of, wow, it's really great that David doesn't get paid by the note. And it's one of those jokes that I'm just fucking tired of hearing. And that's really the context of this. I apologize. I should not have done what I did because I made a joke about, well, I could play faster. And looking back at it, it made it seem like I was completely out of touch with what I was saying, number one. It made it look like I was like being legitimately serious, and I was being sarcastic. But I was also legitimately pissed off because I was like, you know what? I have fucking had so much criticism from people telling me you play too fast. Nothing you plays means anything. Like, I've heard it my entire fucking life. And you know what? Get fucked. I don't care anymore. You can complain about it till you're blue in the face that you don't like people who play fast. Fine. That's not your bag. I'm not asking you to like it.
Right. It's not your job to like it.
No, but I do think there's some things I want to address here before I go any further, which is that, like, yeah, of course, I love people like David Gilmour, for example. He's one of my favorite players. Dude does not play 100 miles an hour. Let's just be honest.
Right.
Doesn't mean the shit he plays isn't any more challenging than anybody else's stuff. And there's other dudes that I love that do both, right? They know that they can play these, slow, very specific moving pieces and then go and do some John Petrucci shit, And it's like, for me, look, I grew up idolizing people like Eddie Van Halen, remembering watching my brother watch that stuff on TV. I remember being in a town that was like a couple hours from Austin, right? And so what do you think we heard on the radio? And the TV, like the afternoon kids show, the in-between music. It was all Texas blues. I mean, I was living in Texas at that time. So for me, the way I perceive music is very, very different, I think, than somebody that like grew up in a household where your older siblings were listening to Britney Spears and NSYNC, or maybe you had the cool older sibling that was listening to a lot of Pink Floyd and Santana, which I grew up with kids that had that stuff going on too.
Yeah.
So for me, like, when I hear somebody say this, I just feel like they're very narrow-minded. And it irritates me because, like, I put a lot of effort into being the best guitar player I could perceivably be. I get asked this question, should I have reacted that way? Especially not in a public setting, for sure. Like, not as a band member talking to an audience. I'll get somebody who's a potential fan. That made me feel like complete shit when I watched it back and I realized that somebody reached out to me and said, you were being really, for lack of a better, cringy. And I was like, and then I watched it and I went, yeah, you're right. But I also sort of already knew why, because I was like, they said the one thing that like pushes my buttons and I'm just sick of hearing it. I posted a video and you could probably find it if you look hard enough, and it wasn't good, right? I'll just be completely frank, but this was 12 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was like, oh, that's a lot of noodling. And
Yeah,
that pissed me off, like 12 years ago. And believe me, it was. He wasn't wrong. Okay, he wasn't wrong. But it like started this perception and reaction that when I talk to
right.
people, when I play in front of people, I actually get concerned that they're going to be like, oh, he plays too much. He overplays. Dude, that's what I do. I mean, like, get over it. Overplaying is a thing. I mean, Joe Bonamassa had jokes about the fact that like people pay to see him overplay over blues changes. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let's just get with the program. Like it's okay. It's okay to overplay. Um, I mean, to be completely honest, I think they both require certain skills, and they're not mutually they're not mutually exclusive either. But like they are sort of exclusive. You're not gonna learn to play like Yngwie Malmsteen and not use it. You know what I mean? Like, even guys that do say they don't use it, you hear elements of shred in their music. I mean, and I do idolize play. There are certain players specifically I idolize who are very capable of the shred stuff, but still play soulfully and melodically. And I feel like I still accomplish that. But it's infuriating for me to hear that. So that's why I did it. It wasn't because I was trying to be a dick. Like, it was because I've had years of like people telling me this shit and it irritates me. It's the same thing as when I had my Kiesel and I'd go out to my headless, right? And I'd go out to bars and some drunk guy would
Where's
come
the
up
rest
to
of your
me.
guitar?
What the hell happened to your neck? And then I had one guy tell me, is that a fucking mandolin? And I was just like, no, it's my guitar. And then I get up and play and let my playing do the talking. And that's what I should have done here. But it was just you can only take so much of that crap. And in my Twitch, to be fair, in my Twitch stream, if somebody comes in and starts fucking being a jerk, I'm gonna boot your ass, and I have done that. So there's that too to be aware of. I moderate for my wife's Twitch stream, which is like, do you say something to my wife? Yeah, they 100%. She's giving me license to boot whoever the hell I want anyway, but it's like absolutely will not be tolerated. And that's kind of how I felt about this, but I shouldn't have taken it as that much of an affront. This is the old
Right.
musician ribbing joke between the two guys in the room, and I just wasn't seeing it that way. I was seeing it, this is some random person at home because I didn't know the person. Just kind of busted my balls. And it's like, you know what? What it should have says, come on over. You can do it. I'll let you do it. You gonna take over? Maybe that's more dickish than what I did say, but
So I've got a lot of people who go on to one of the videos that I have posted to my channel,
mm-hmm.
and they'll say stuff like, "That was out of tune," and I can see that they only watched for a few seconds, or that was that's the easiest Skinnerd song there is to play.
Newsflash: most Skinnerd songs are not difficult.
And I thought to myself, number one, you haven't got something nice, don't say it.
Right.
I mean, it's an old adage that still holds up against the test of time. You don't have anything nice, don't say anything at all. Leave it at home. And
go ahead.
Yeah, let me just finish this part. And the other part is that, and I think this is the more important part, is that then I go over to these people's channels, and I do this on other people's channels where I'll see somebody has written something smart ass, and I look at their channel, and they have nothing. They have nothing. If you're going to come at somebody, have something. I mean, if you can't go with rule number one, don't say anything nice at all. Have something. Show me that you did something other than one guy had a video of him playing Guitar Hero. I mean, that's what you've got. That is what you've got to show that you're a better guitar player. Is you played Guitar Hero and you were awesome at it. Oh goody!
How many Guitar Heroes do you think are really good at Guitar Hero?
Right.
I got news for you. Ain't many.
That's right. And Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson sucked at Guitar Hero. So, I don't know if you ever saw that Rush one. If you ever seen Rush playing either Guitar Hero or Rock Band, it is hilarious, and they sucked at it. Couldn't play their own parts. So that just tells you how good Guitar Hero is and what a measure of a real musician is. But all that said, it's that I don't go back at them and say, hey, I went to your channel and it's full of crap and blah, blah. I just leave it. I mean, I think some people are just looking for a fight. Some people just need to put somebody else down. Sometimes it's because there's so many reasons that people are insulting in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think they were trying to be insulting, personally. I think they just thought it was funny and cute, and they were trying to be like cute, funny about it. Right. And they don't realize like that has a lot of baggage attached to it for me,
right?
And also for other players I know, because I'm not the only one I've had this conversation with in the past. I know for a fact there are specifically other people, including some in our community, who think this kind of behavior is ridiculous. That both my behavior and their behavior. So, word of warning: 2 wrongs don't make a right. But I'm just saying, like, be more open-minded, and you won't run into this shit,
right?
You know, and it wasn't this specific person. It's just there's this whole culture of people that are like, and I'll be honest with you, I had a lot of thinking about this, and I think a lot of it's people being like, I can't do that, so it sucks. No one's asking you to do that. It's not a competition. It's not like anybody's expecting you to have this specific repertoire that includes people that are physically like kind of freakish, right? Nobody's expecting you to come in and play like Marty Friedman tomorrow. Right. And so if you're gonna like piss on people, you know, understand that these guys are like up here somewhere. They're just not playing the stuff you like. Right. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, we go to that. Well, that music has no soul, and this, that, and the other thing. And again, it comes back to my rule number 1. If you don't have something nice to say, just keep it to yourself. You might think it doesn't have soul. You might think it doesn't speak to you. You might think it's not great. You might think it's blah, blah, blah.
I mean, for having no soul, I sure put a year into it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I put everything into this that I could. And I guess could the record have turned out better? Yeah. But I feel like it's one of those things where when you're in the moment and you're doing it, it is a reflection of where you were at that point in time. And I think the fact that we've done that is sort of pulling the mask off, you know, like I'm not hiding anything. There's nothing I've got nothing to hide. This is very stripped back. Like, okay, I'm going to play this solo. There's one solo on here I did like 96 takes on, but like everything else is pretty much spot on. And just like, okay, I went nuts. And I tried to replicate some of the solos live, but I was talking to another friend and he was like, dude, you just let loose on some of those. Like, it was like you were playing much better than you were on the record for some of them. And I was like, well, I mean, it's just when you're in the moment and you have that feel, right? And you have that emotion and you put it into your music and you make it more intense. And that's exactly what I did. And so you're going to tell me that doesn't have soul? Like maybe it doesn't have the elements of music that you're familiar with hearing that you like, but it doesn't mean that I didn't put my effort into it. You know, like I didn't put myself into it, when I hear somebody say that, that's what I hear. I want to hear what's driving those notes, what's making those notes do the things they do.
I mean, it's like now I'm gonna out myself a little bit here. It's like when you're walking through a place and everybody's like, "Oh, such a cute baby! Oh, isn't that a beautiful baby?" And you look at it, you go, "I don't think that was finished before you let it out." And
Two wrongs don't
I'll
make a
never.
right.
I'll tell you a true story. I'll tell you a true story. This is how little filter I have.
Oh, we
So
know.
my best friend, his daughter was born. This comes back to what we're talking about. His daughter was born. He was such a proud papa. He's got his baby girl. I don't think she was a day or two old. If she was 2 days old, I'd be surprised. I think it was the day. So anyway, he's got her in his arms. He's so proud. He shows her to me, and I look at her and I go, "This is the ugliest fucking kid I've ever seen in my entire life." And he looks at me, and I thought he was going to cry. And I go, "Dan, it looks just like you. Only it doesn't have a mustache." And then he was like, "Oh, I knew you didn't mean what you said." No, of
Yeah,
course not.
in the back of your head, you're thinking, "Yeah, I did."
No, she's a beautiful. She's a beautiful child.
I
She's a beautiful woman. But she had her daddy's face, and he would not make a good looking woman. And so, it's like, luckily she grew out of that. I'll tell you that. But I'm just saying that he, there's a there is a point where we have to be able to keep back the things that can be construed as mean. Luckily, we had a friendship, and that's what I was getting at. We had a friendship, a
yeah, there's a
bond.
common ground there.
We are still very best friends. He is my very, very top best friend on this entire planet, outside of my children and my wife. That is my best friend in the world. Okay, so I know him better than I know my brothers. I mean, it's a common bond. So to sit down and say that to him was because I knew that I could say that in jest and then crack the rest of the joke. But people tend to do this on the internet with strangers.
Yeah,
That's a totally different thing. You see what I mean?
yeah, but
I'm sure you and the listeners had a different reaction until I finished the thing. I You have to be able to know that I am I'm not talking to you like a friend. So you don't understand. And we're on the internet. I went to business communication. There's so many things you have to think about when you communicate with people, especially when you write communication. And it is a one-way ticket to, oh shit, I
yeah,
didn't mean it that way. And it's already out there in the ether. And it you're like,
well, it's worth sharing. I brought it up on the show. I wanted to make the apology. I also wanted to say that I talked to my wife about this. My wife says, "You're the driest person I know,"
right,
and she basically said, like, I could see people missing
right.
some of the things you say because you're so dry
That's right.
that, like, they don't see the humor in it. But I wasn't being humorous. I was being like razor tongue, sarcastic, like go fuck yourself kind of.
Yeah.
And it just didn't come
Yep.
off that way because in the moment, of course, we're playing music and I'm trying to be, happy smile. And I'm like, you fucking asshole, like, I'll find you. And I understand why you hear these stories about people jumping off into the crowd, beating the shit out of people in the crowd, like harassing other people or like yelling at them or whatever. I understand it. Like even Steve Morse tells a story about spitting on somebody.
He,
Um,
Dave, Roger Waters
mhm.
famously spit on the crowd in Montreal in 1974 because they kept shouting out, "Money, money,
And
money,
to be
money."
fair, I think that's a dick move, and
Yep,
I would
I do
be
too. I'm not.
terrified of something like that happening. And actually, I would be like, "Look, what can I do to make it up to this person after it's over?" But I
Yep.
understand people getting pushed
Oh,
too
he hated
far.
himself for it. He was literally that's kind of I want to say it was that tour that Comfortably Numb, the Doctor,
Yeah.
which became Comfortably Numb, was written over.
Uh-huh.
And it's all because he was just not it, they weren't Marina Rockers yet. They had just released Dark Side of the Moon. They were going out there in front of tens of thousands of people instead of hundreds of people or thousands of people. And suddenly he's like, I hate this. I hate
Mhm.
what we've become. I hate what our relationship with the audience has become, and I hate what I did for doing that. I
Mhm.
mean, you hear a lot of stuff about him literally berating himself over the fact that he did it.
No,
So,
I'm just highly embarrassed, and like I would
yeah.
never have said that to somebody had I had any
No, of course not.
context, and I just was in, it was in the moment, and like I was like,
Yeah.
no, this is really the wrong thing to do. So anyway, I want to go ahead and skip over to the next topic. So the next topic is brand reliability versus reality,
Yeah.
and we've
Yeah.
actually touched on it, I think, briefly on other shows, and I do recall at some point saying we were going to come back to it. I had a personal situation come up. We were talking about it with a friend, and so I want to bring this up and kind of preface this conversation as this. Um, there is a disjoin, especially if you go on places like the Gear Page or other, the internet guitar community stuff. Which before we even begin this discussion, I want to say this: the vast majority of people who play guitar aren't in every forum. They're not in the Gear Page. The Gear Page is a very, very small community of musicians. Um, I have looked there. I like when I go in the Gear Page, I recognize people's names.
Yeah.
That's how
Me too.
small it actually is.
Yep.
Um, and same thing with like Harmony Central back in the day and whatever, I'm on Strat Talk as well and some of the other
Oh yeah,
ones.
I used to be on Harmony Central.
And
Used to be on Strat Talk.
and I've been on the Facebook groups is sort of the same thing. You see the same names
Mhm.
popping up in different Facebook groups. It's a
Mhm.
very, very small community of people communicating about guitar on the internet. I run
That's
into people all the time at stores who have no fucking clue what's going on the internet, right?
yep.
In
They don't
terms of
care.
guitar culture, they're not on YouTube watching Philip McKnight. They don't give a shit about him. They don't give a shit about us. They don't give a shit about 60 Tackle Hum or anybody else for that matter.
Yep.
Um, so
Yep.
I want to preface this with that. Now, when I'm talking about brand reliability versus reality, on these forums and these for lack of a better word, these internet communities of people, they tend to have like these allegiances. Like if you go to My Les Paul, you're going to get a lot of people talking about Les Pauls as like the greatest guitar on earth and Gibson can do no wrong and all that stuff. And if you go on the Gear Page, you're going to get the opposite. You're going to get a bunch of people who are like, Gibson's evil. They're too expensive. They don't make good stuff. Like, I get it. Right. And I pick on Gibson because we all talk about Gibson reliability from time to time. I'm also going to talk about Fender here and everybody else too. So what I want to talk about is the difference in that perception of how a brand is versus how a
In
brand
reality.
actually is. And I've heard people, this is the first other case I want to talk about, which is that I've heard people say, well, my tech says. So I'm gonna tell you what's wrong with what your tech
Yeah.
says. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I'm not look, your tech is probably right to an extent. He sees a lot of guitars with a certain problem.
Mhm.
And let's just talk about guitars. Like we're not going to talk about amps. That's a whole other thing. And it actually is basically the same principles apply. So I think we could just use guitars as a hypothetical. Um, let's say they say Fender has a lot, and I'm just using Fender as an example. Fender has a lot of guitars that have warped necks. Okay. Now, what is a technician using to base his opinion on? Guitars that come in the shop, right? So you can guess he's probably correct in that he's had a lot of Fenders on his bench with warped necks. Now, first problem, that's anecdotal.
Yep.
It's one tech, okay? And
Yep.
climate could be a factor. It could be a million different things. I'm not even going to try and speculate on it because it could just be a million different things. They could be a dealer. Like that could be another thing. Like people tend to take their guitars back to the dealer where they bought them to get them worked on a lot of times.
Mhm.
Um, Players who are more professional, been doing a lot longer, usually have a valued tech that they like to take their stuff to. But for the average person, now granted, who's the average person? Somebody might store their guitars in bad environments, right? That could be a cause for warped necks, right? I mean,
Yep.
you got to think about situations like that and sort of apply some logic to what's going on. So let's take it a step further. That's problem one, right? So your technician says, and we'll get back to the forum thing because that's a whole other can of worms. I think Jim and I are going to have a long conversation about that. But technician says, and then based on what he gets on his bench, right? Well, here's the other thing. Technician says Fenders have warp necks, right? Who makes more guitars than anyone else? I mean, Fender and Gibson are pretty much the top manufacturers of guitars in the country.
Yeah.
So why might you think they would have a negative opinion of that brand specifically? Because they see more guitars from that company.
Yeah.
But they don't actually know, and a lot of times they lose sight of the fact that for every one guitar that comes across their bench, there's 500 that never even get to him. You know, that he never sees. He doesn't get to evaluate. And that a lot of those guitars are what I like to call, and what Ed Roman used to call, Christmas guitars. Meaning, and since tis the season, right? People get them as gifts. They never play the damn things. They end up in a closet. The best fucking Fender guitar on earth could be in somebody's closet or underneath their bed, given to them in 1988 as a Christmas gift, and forgotten.
Yep.
Let that sink in for a moment. There's your truth bomb for the episode, right? If you want a truth, I hate that shit. I hate that expression too. But that's like, holy shit. Like, it could be a thing. It could, right? So how would you, I mean, you can't make an accurate assessment based on anecdotal evidence. This is something I deal with at my association. We deal with a large quantity of members. Squeaky wheel often gets the grease, but it's one of those conversations we have to have about anecdotal evidence and how it relates to workplace performance. And in our case, I think a lot of opinion in the guitar community is based purely on anecdotal evidence. Jim, you're a Gibson guy. I mean, we hear all the time about guitars that are poorly made and whatever, but like by and large, I mean, I could tell you the guitars I picked up in the store from Gibson that people said were dog shit were poor setups. Okay.
Yep.
Poor setups are poorly cut nuts. When I hear dog shit, I think warped neck out of the box and on the shelf ready for sale. I haven't seen, and now maybe I'm not the best person to assess that, but I haven't seen a lot of warped necks coming out of either Gibson or Fender sitting on the floor. Now, I will say this. Many, many, many companies are guilty, especially when they get to the economy of scale, and you can vouch for this, Jim, of shipping out guitars that literally go right back to the factory or right in the dumpster. Because they sort of use the mom and pop shops and the dealers and the big box guys to whittle out the bad stuff at the end of the line sometimes because their QC didn't kick that one back. And also because, like, okay, let's talk about how Fender ships guitars. If it's a guitar that comes without a case, it's in its gig bag. It's in a box with barely any padding. It shows up and like, it's a crapshoot. But Fender knows they can afford to lose this many instruments in shipping. And they ship so many guitars, they have an accurate equation. They know we are going to lose X, Y, Z in shipping and that we can write that off. And they're okay with that, which is exactly why. So right now, the big scandal is the AVRI guitars. And this is where we're going to get back to the forums, right? I saw a post in the gear page about one with missing screws for the tele control plate. That was shown to me by Jeff B. And I think I've seen several where they're missing vibrato arms, right? Like I think you told me about that one, and I've seen a couple others since then. But it's like I have to step back and go, how many of these guitars did they ship? Because we don't know. We don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
This could be Fender's most popular model. I mean, they could have shipped a zillion of these.
1,000 or 15,000 or 20,000.
And the 20 bad ones wound up on the internet, and everybody's going, "Holy shit, their quality's gone to hell." You know?
That's what I was going to say. So the whether it's Gibson, Fender, or IVY, and Firefly, the fact of the matter is, very few people are going to get on the internet and go, this is an awesome guitar. This is awesome and awesome, awesome.
Right.
Most people are going to get on the guitar, or I mean, get on the internet because they want to prove to the company this thing is a piece of garbage,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how it came. It doesn't do this. It won't do that. I can't get it in tune. I can't. I've tried intonating it. I pulled the strings off. I saw one guy, for some reason, Gibsons are starting to become popular again. So all of a sudden, I saw one guy.
Yeah,
He's talking
because
about
Epiphone
Gibson.
prices are more expensive now. That's why.
I know, and that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, so I see this guy, and he goes, "Yeah, I wish I could tell you it was great, but I went to adjust the truss rod, and there wasn't one. I just forgot to put it on."
Yeah,
I
that's
think I
great.
saw another guy
That's
where
great.
the truss
That's
rod
great.
turned and didn't do anything. It was just
Yeah.
spinning because they got to lock it down. Truss rods aren't,
Yeah,
they're
if you
not
don't-
magical things. So I found that a little bit hilarious. Um, and but the thing is, and I'm picking on Chips a little bit here, but the thing is that those are two of how many thousand Chipsons get shipped out a day.
Yeah. From
So-
multiple manufacturers,
So
right?
to hear from somebody going, "My Chipson's great," doesn't really shock me.
Yeah, somebody
doesn't
like somebody like Eastman Guitars.
Yeah,
I mean, so just keep that in mind. And I think there's a reason why smaller companies tend to get a better rap for reliability.
right.
When you only ship 10 or 15 guitars a day, it's really easy to make sure that they all hit the QC marks.
That's right. And when I see, like you're talking about, Eastman Heritage, another
Yeah.
one. What's the one? Collings, right?
Yeah,
That's the
Collings. Yeah,
big. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, Collings would be compared to custom shop so little stuff, and quite
That's right.
frankly, any sort of reliability or damage issue at custom shop level is
Yep.
unacceptable. When you're talking about
not.
that kind of money,
that's right.
just not acceptable.
Novo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you're absolutely right. I have no complaints with my custom shop, but I've heard people complain about the custom shops, and I'm not saying that their complaints are valid in any way, shape, or form. So again, that's an economy of scale. It's a
Yeah.
there's certain things that happen,
Right. Well, and we've talked about custom shops, and I kind of embarrass the Murphy Lab stuff all the time because the checking looks so bad. But that's not a quality issue.
I don't.
That's just
No,
the way that's the way they do it.
That's their artistic thing. I've talked
Right.
about that before. I wish if and again, I'm not going to go down the I wouldn't buy a relic guitar thing
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not.
yeah. We've done that. It's
Right.
been done.
But what I would say is if I wanted a relic guitar, because I hear this all the time about like the Brad Paisley or the other ones that come off the New Mexico line of Fenders, and you get a relic guitar in, and it looks exactly like the other Brad Paisley, looks exactly like the other.
Yeah, which doesn't look like a relic at all.
Which doesn't look like very relic at all. But that said, I could look at 5 Murphy Labs, and they pretty much look identical.
Mhm.
Because there's really, okay, how many ways can you drag keys across the back, and apply the checking to the finish
Well,
I mean-
I think, but I also think Murphy Lab is
and
selling.
wear out the frets between the 5th fret and and not just Murphy Lab. I'm talking about Fender custom shop too.
But I don't think that so Fender is more it's more cookie cutter mix and match patterns. I
Yep.
think Murphy Lab is like, we're all going to make this whole run look the same. And that's
Right.
okay. That's honestly, if you're a consumer, especially today in today's internet buying market, and you get online and you go, I want that one, the one that's pictured, the model guitar from XYZ line, you can get that from them, right? Like, that's actually kind of cool. From my perspective, when I bought my PRS, I had to like dig through hundreds of different CEs to find a top I liked that I just
Yeah.
found pictures online of dealers, going to different dealers and
Correct.
stuff.
Yep.
Before I finally found one where I was like, that's the one I want.
Mhm.
And it honestly came from a place that, they always have 5 or 6 listed on the site anyway. But it was like, yeah, well, no. So like it was one of the first places I looked and I just got lucky. There was another one at Ish, which I almost got that one, but,
Right.
it's just, when you start thinking about that proposition, like there's a lot of factors that go into it. So then the internet community, this is where things get dicey
Yep.
because everyone has an agenda on the internet.
Right.
Okay.
That's
And you don't
absolutely
know
right.
and because there's so much anonymity, you don't know how genuine people are. I mean, usually in like groups, like Facebook groups, I think people are generally a little bit more upstanding, but we've also seen people with fake profile pictures, fake names, all that kind of shit in there too. And when you hear stuff that just doesn't make any fucking sense, it really hurts the credibility of somebody saying something. Like,
Right.
remember we used to talk about people saying, I sold my freedman to get a katana. No, you
Yeah.
didn't.
Well,
Stop lying.
I
Like,
that's right. I sold my custom shop Les Paul to buy a Chibson. No, you didn't. You bought a Chibson and you decided you wanted some money and you
yeah,
sold the custom shop Les Paul, which
right.
there's nothing wrong
Or
with
maybe
that.
you had
Just
bills or
be
whatever.
honest.
There's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. Exactly. Just be honest about
You don't need to
it.
tell people why. Just say, you know what? I got the Chibson. I liked it and I needed some money for something that came up. I sold my Les
You don't
Paul.
even have to
I
say
mean,
that. You say it wasn't a quality issue. I just decided to keep this one over the other.
yeah,
You don't have to provide a reason at all.
at
But
all. None.
don't act like that was the
Right.
only thing that drove your decision making, that this did the job just as well, because we all know that's not true. I mean, I think the average consumer would understand that you didn't buy a Honda
Right.
Civic because like
Right.
or you had
I
a Honda
didn't
Civic
I
and you
didn't think
sold your Porsche because there's too much overlap.
yeah. You know what? The BMW just didn't do it for me, so I got a Hyundai, and I'm so much happier now.
Could you imagine getting a Kia over a BMW?
Imagine I got a used Yugo, and I'm so much happier now.
Well, that's what you got back there. It's 12 string.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I you know, um, I will say though, and this is where it really comes down to what we're talking about here, is that the people I, being in the Les Paul forums, I would see people all the time. I got this. I paid $4,000 for it. It's the best Les Paul. And I go, that's a Chibson. And of course, 15 other people have already told them that's
Yeah.
no, it's not. I got this at a reputable dealer, and this is no, that's a Chibson.
And if you spent
And
$4,000 on
if
it,
you
you're an
did,
idiot.
you got raped. And
Yeah.
it's like, and so the hilarious part about it is, you might have to bleep that. Um,
Yeah,
it,
probably will.
anyway, you got screwed. I'll say it that way. Um, so the point is that the person is lying. They're obviously lying. There's nobody in their right freaking mind. Even with the type of guitar they got, even if it was not a fake, it wasn't a $4,000 guitar to begin with. So it's just, for some reason, again, we get to that internet thing. For some reason, people feel like they've got to peacock. They've got to do all this stuff, and it's not.
Well,
It,
but the
yeah, go
agenda
ahead.
can even come down something as simple as, I know the guy that built this guitar, which we know that there's people like Equits and other guys out there, Roni and all of them.
Yep.
And like or even the guy that runs Novo, like I know them personally. They're good people, and like
Yep.
I don't like that Gibson is kicking over their anthill. And so every time I see a thread where people are talking about Gibson,
Right.
I'm going to make up some story about, and you don't think that happens?
Exactly.
You don't. I will tell you this. Guitar for most people is a hobby.
Yes.
Okay. And
And for some people, it's
even,
passion.
yeah, well, but even people that are playing out, like it's generally a hobby for 95% of people probably buying guitars. But what I wanted to say with regard to that is people are super, super vicious about their hobbies. I don't know if you've been involved with anything else, but like I can tell you, I have a friend that was into aquariums, and he wanted to put together fancy aquariums and like put sharks and stuff in them.
Mm-hmm.
And people would argue about all kind. He'd tell me about some of the shit, and I'd be like, "This petty fucking nonsense."
Oh yeah.
Like, you got to use this air filtration system because if you don't, like,
yeah, the Pelican's not going to work well enough for you. You can't use the Pelican 550. I know that you're using 4 of them on a 75-gallon tank. First thing first, what you've got to do, you've got to get this wave system, and then
you ask the guy, you go, "Well, what's your rig?" And he goes, "I don't even have a rig." Like,
yeah,
I'm a pool boy.
I was into the. That was one of the few things that I was into. It's same with guns. I'll go to gun places, and I'm looking at my son is looking at a particular sidearm, and the guy, I wouldn't buy that, and he goes,
yeah, dude. It doesn't matter whether it's guns, bikes, cars,
bicycles,
people
cars,
get fierce, and they get ridiculous, and it gets to
the
point.
Products.
It gets to the point where it's like absurd. Now I have a certain friend, and he's going to be listening, and he knows who he is because I'm not going to say his name, but he bought an orange, right? And he's a guy that like really into reliability on amps and stuff. But like, I know from stories from other people and from things I've heard in the industry that Orange has had a kind of sketchy reputation for their quality in the last really 10 years, 15 years, since the Tiny Terror, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that is complete internet bullshit myth, right?
Correct.
But like, I hear this and I go, you start wondering, you're like, is this a real thing or not? And I know that the person that bought this amp is probably having the same like mental breakdown right now as I say this, and I don't think it's a problem. I'm telling you that, you specifically, listener, that's not a problem. What I'm saying is that there are people that literally I can't buy that because it could be problematic. Listen, I have the amp.
If you want to hear,
go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to hear people go berserk over their products, get into any collector's thing. I don't care if it's Funko Pops, MMOs. You've been in the MMO. No, you cannot play Final Fantasy 14. You have to play Final Fantasy 11. Or no, you can't play Final Fantasy. You have to play.
You have to have this specific gaming mouse to play this game.
Yeah, you can't use that mouse. You've got to use the OBGY 732 because it's got 14 buttons and a bitch A1. I mean,
you can't click the buttons in the action bar at the bottom of the screen, even though the game allows you to do it.
Yeah.
Like I cannot shit you. This is the kind of stupid controversy that other communities generate that is analogous to what goes on in guitar. There is a mental psychological thing that happens when people form a community that they feel that they have to have it. They not only do they feel that their opinion matters, but they feel that they must have one and that they must assert themselves as having an opinion that matters. And guitar is absolutely no different. Don't believe me? Right. Go to a guitar show. Talk to a few people you've never met before about guitar and get their opinions. Because I guarantee you will hear some of the same stupid bullshit dogma that you hear in your guitar shops about bad brands and all this garbage nonsense. Look, I get it. If you buy a bad Gibson, I understand why you wouldn't want to buy another bad Gibson. But
especially if you put a lot of money into it.
That doesn't mean every Gibson is bad. In fact, point of fact, most of them are probably pretty good.
Right.
I mean,
I always wonder. I'm like, I guess I've been lucky. And it's like,
no, you haven't been lucky, Jim. You get lucky when you get a bad one of anything.
Right. And that's the point I was going to make. It's just like, look, I had a Ford, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
well,
tell
you
you
want to
about
talk
my
about
Ford.
I have a Ford right now. You want to talk about a company that has the worst brand reputation ever? Mine's been
Well, there's a
fine.
reason they call it fix or repair daily,
Yeah, or found on
or
road dead.
fucked over on raw deal.
Found on road dead. That's my favorite.
Flip over and read directions. I gotta tell you, I have so many fucking old rusty Dodge. I have one. I have one. So I had a Mustang, and it was the world's worst Mustang. It was the Mustang II in
Oh,
1976. So I had a
oh,
1976 Mustang II. So, and folks, it wasn't that old when I owned it. Just to let you know, it was used, but it was not that
Jesus.
old. And so I had that car. I drove it, and then I traded in. I got a Datsun. And I moved myself up in the world.
Yeah, you got a Datsun. That's really a move up in the world right there.
No, it was a move. That was kind of
It
a
was a
lateral move.
lateral move.
And it was a Datsun B210 GTX or whatever. At least it was built after 1980. Anyway, I moved on and moved up, and I've moved down. I've done this, and anyway, so I eventually got I got a bonus check, and I was moving into another company, and I was getting a bigger check. So I was like, I'm going to get myself a Ford pickup truck, and I got it's the short Ford pickup truck, Sport Track, and they don't make the Sport Track
Yeah,
anymore,
they don't.
probably for good reason. And so I had a Sport Track, and I loved that truck. And then all of a sudden, the transmission started going bad, and I brought it back, and they said, "All right, we got this thing fixed. You're ready to go." I had my babies and my daughter in there. So little, the boys were really little. It's winter. I drive it 3 miles up the street. I had picked up from the place that fixed it, okay? Didn't get 3 miles, and it broke down. Now I'm on the side of the road in rural upstate New York, where there's nobody between me and Vermont and where I'm going. I get on my cell phone and I finally get enough signal to call them, and they're like, "Well, we closed." And I go, "You better send a fucking wrecker out here, and you better get me home." And they did. And then they called me and said, "You need a whole new transmission." And
That's not your fault.
I know, but I didn't do. And this truck is still under fucking warranty. I got it back, and stupid me, I got so pissed about it. This is me.
You sold
It's
it.
me. I got so pissed about it. I turned it in. I traded for a Hyundai. So
There's another lateral move for you.
that was a downward move. That's one of those like this.
Well, no, lateral like football. You threw it backwards.
Oh yeah, yeah. I threw it, but yeah, I did a lateral, and unfortunately the guy fumbled it, and I don't even want to get into the Hyundai thing. But the point is that I got pissed, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck Ford. Ford's." And I got into that, and if it was the early days of the internet. Yeah, those cars suck. Yeah, and all of a sudden the echo chamber was more than willing to fill my head with, "Yup, you got a shit deal. You got a raw deal. You need to get rid of that piece of crap, buy a better car." And everybody was like, Hyundai, because they were just like Chipson guys. Oh yeah, if you go out there and you spend a little bit, you're gonna get a lot.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and I bought into it. I was done and dumb enough. I was in my late 30s at this point, and I was about your age. I bought into it, and I was stupid. And I'm telling you right now, it's dumb. But I did it because I was, yeah, they're right, and I'm right because I was thinking the same thing for
You got
about
caught
4
up.
seconds. Yep, and they blew up my ego by giving me information that was shit. And
Well,
goes
it's
right
not
back
even
to
that they gave information that was shit. They just gave their version of information.
Right. They give
And
me their.
And in reality, you probably could have driven that truck and been fine for,
Yep, I'd probably still be driving.
it just has to do with people making emotional decisions, right? And you get emotionally connected to your hobbies.
That's
And
right.
you get emotionally connected enough that like you start to
Yep.
form these almost delusional relationships with companies.
Yeah.
And so I have the AMP1. This is what was going to be my side, right?
Right.
It is made in China, from a German design.
Mhm.
And I see people bitching in the forums about them breaking all the time. And I sit there and I wonder, should I buy another one just so I have a spare? And it's kind of like one of those things where you sit there and you go, do I, like I rely on this thing, right? I
Yeah.
need it. I need another one. But then at the same time, you're also like, maybe I should get a different product because if it breaks, and at the end of the day,
Right.
the stupid part, Jim? I have 2 other amps that I could use, that I can rely on. What the fuck am I worried about?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but that doesn't stop that thought from entering my head. And it has to do with the emotion of the moment.
Yep.
And it has to do
Same
with,
here with the camper.
it also has to do with the thought process that when you're sitting in these groups, you're only going to hear the bad stories. You don't
That's
know
right.
about the other 10,000 units that are sitting out there because the thing's been around for 10 years,
Yep.
that are still functional and have never had a problem.
Yep.
So it's just that's the way I wanted to frame that. All right. So we want to talk about the new PRS. Are you ready? Let's talk about the new PRS. So PRS announced rather unceremoniously that they are doing a DGT SE. A lot of people have said that they will never do a DGT SE. I can honestly say I had heard from somebody several years ago that there was going to be a DGT SE. I cannot say who that person is. They're not a dealer. It was somebody that was affiliated with the company, believe it or not. But that there were issues as to why they could not actually produce that guitar at that time. And they would not tell what those issues were because that's obviously proprietary information, but I have a feeling it has something to do with the pickups. So we're getting a DGT SE. I don't know what amount of official information has come out. I've seen things in forums about the DGT SE. They just dropped a video saying that they're doing it, right? And it was more or less talking about their relationship between David Grissom and Paul Reed Smith and the company and the person and how that came to be. I did not realize DGT had been playing their guitars that freaking long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is David Grissom, right? I'm not getting it wrong. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, David Grissom. The T is Trem.
Yeah.
David Grissom Trem.
Is it gonna? So, do we know if it's gonna? So his. I'm gonna pull up the spec on his USA model because I'm curious.
All right, let me look at the spec on the overseer.
Yeah, because there's some things I want to highlight about this that like I think are worthy of conversation. All right, so the David Grissom model, what's special about it is it has special tone controls. We know that. It is in their core line. Actually, I also want to talk about the Robin Ford model too, while we're on the subject of new stuff for PRS, because that was a kind of a quiet announcement about a month ago, in the sense that like it came at an off time. But so the DGT has the same tremolo as the core. It has the phase 3 locking tuners like other cores, but it has DGT pickups, which are special. They're kind of tuned to his ear. And it has what I wanted to see was what the neck is, and I believe it's a mahogany neck, right? I don't think this is one of the maple neck models that they've done. No. Okay. So that's all I was looking for, because a lot of people have said they want PRS to make a core model with a maple neck. That they feel that the maple neck is a better, more reliable neck for professional purposes. And that's what I've actually been heard toted, right? Some people are like tone, but most people are like, well, maple is just more stable. And I was kind of wondering if maybe this will be the model where they put a maple neck SE out. I know they do other ones, I think, but then no, that's not going to.
I can tell you no.
That's not going to. Yeah, that's not going to be the case on this guitar. So,
I can tell you,
you played a DGT before, right?
Yep.
I believe I have too, and I didn't really think A lot of people said that's the best pickups that PRS does. I don't know if
Debatable.
that's the case. So I'm going to
It's
do an aside on
debatable.
that, and I want to take back a statement. So a couple weeks ago, actually in the previous launched episode, because I don't even know if I could salvage the last one. In the previous launched episode, we had talked about the PRS pickup thing in the SE line
Mhm.
being basically comparable to the S2 stuff, and how like the TCI pickups were different, and that's a new thing that they've done. And I just want to preface this with like, these are a totally separate thing. So I don't even know if they have the TCI stamp on them.
Right.
I know that they've been basically moderately changed over the life of PRS. And this guitar has been, I don't think this model's been around this long, but the original guitar that he had built, he's had it since like 1983 or something, right? It's been like a long ass time ago.
He started with PRS. I saw some videos of him playing it on like the Tonight Show or something like a long, long time ago. So he's been using uh DG or PRS for a long time, and they built him one early. Um, he's one of those guys. If you haven't heard of David Grissom, he's one of those guys that's a sideman and a uh, studio cat for
Yeah.
decades.
Which lends
Um,
itself to the control layout of this guitar, which is
right,
2 volume controls with push pull
and
tone
one.
controls.
That's right.
And a 3-way toggle pickup switch, which means
Yep,
that he can control each pickup volume independently, and I believe also the tone independently for each pickup.
that's correct.
Which would be a total studio thing. So you could switch
Yep,
back and forth and have like the bridge rolled off, you know,
yep,
and not have the neck rolled off, which is a good, I mean, it's a cool feature.
yep.
Um, but what this guitar won't do is the coil tap, right? I mean, that's because
The
he's
SE might.
well, that's what I'm wondering is if they're going to go with conventional electronics in the SE,
The
more
SE might
conventional electronics.
the SE might be a little more conventional in its control layout,
Okay.
in that it may have coil tap um, for that sweet um, single coil inspired sound.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not reading anything when I say that. I keep looking over this.
Please close whatever you have open so that we can do this with a straight face.
Yeah, yeah. I,
Um,
oh yeah, hold on. Let me close this. Oh, there it. Oh wait, I'm supposed to be looking over here and closing it. Oh yeah, there. Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's closed now.
All right.
And it may or may not have a mahogany body, uh, violin carve
Can we
top, and
talk about this for a second?
yeah,
So, who is this model for? Because, like, all right,
yeah,
let's just back up.
yeah.
Tremonti
That's exactly.
SE makes sense, right?
Yep,
He's a player that a
yep,
lot of people envy. Um, and I think this leads into a bigger topic discussion of like PRS's direction. And then
yep,
John Mayer, right?
yep. Huge.
Makes sense, right? Let's
Yep,
make an SE.
perfect sense.
Absolutely, right?
Yep, yep.
Here's where they don't make sense. Zach
David Grissom.
Myers,
Oh yeah,
David Grissom. I know that these people are huge supporters of the PRS company, and that
yep,
David Grissom has been with the company a long time. I know that most of the people that are playing David Grissom models that I've met or have, interacted with on the internet,
yep,
most of them don't know who David Grissom even is.
yep.
I don't have a ton of information on who David Grissom is. I know he's a session cat and a studio guy from the 80s, and I know
I
that
gotta be.
people like his guitar, okay?
I've got to be completely honest with you. I've only known David Grissom from his time with one musician. So when he was side manning for one musician on a tour or multiple tours. So I got to be honest with you. Outside of that, no.
So I'm gonna be real with our audience. This at the core level makes a lot of sense because
Yep.
this is a deep player with some very deep ideas for the instrument. And if you want it, you should pay. But what I'm about to say is gonna be really strange. But the reason that this guitar is being brought to the SE line is because people who don't know who David Grissom are have been asking
Right.
for this to happen.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of messed up. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
means what PRS should have done, because by the way, the reason why people like the DGT is the pickups. So PRS should have, and I'm gonna get into the pickup side of this conversation for a second, sold those pickups for a pretty penny. Sell them for the price of the SE. USA pickups for the price of the SE. I'm serious.
Yep.
Now let me give you a little background information here. TCI pickups from Paul Reed Smith right now, if you're to go buy the set, are $500. Sell the David Grissom pickups for $800.
Yep. And
Make
there
them
are
the
people
price
that
of
are
a
going to
Silver
buy
Sky.
'em.
People will buy them. I mean,
That's right.
it'll sell like hotcakes. And quite
Yep.
frankly, then you don't have to pretend that this guitar that you're bringing out is anything special. It's
Right.
like, it's giving people exactly what they want because that's what people want. They've been asking for it. That's Paul Reed Smith. Like, the whole thing has been, I'm not going to offer these pickups as an extra option. They're unique to this guitar. Now we're going to talk about somebody else because this guy got a guitar about 2-3 months ago. And my understanding is they are going to sell these pickups, which is bonkers because these are way more specific than what the DJT's got in it. Okay. The DGT. I keep saying
Right.
J because I'm slurring. I'm not drunk.
Right.
I promise. I don't drink. So that would be a
Right.
hell of a trick.
Yep.
All right. So the Robin Ford limited edition McCarty. Now, let me just stop and preface this. It's fucking black. What was they thinking? I mean, I don't see. I just don't get that part of it. I mean, that's Robin Ford's decision. And Vernon Reed also did a black model, right? He did a black Vela, as well as an Egyptian gold Vela, which is gorgeous, by the way.
Yep.
But they developed pickups for the Robin Ford guitar to give him the famous PAF sounds that he's accustomed to. And these pickups are, I've heard the clips. They're very different than what PRS normally does for pickups. These are low output humbucker monster pickups. And they split real well too. These are magic pickups, right? The guitar itself, they're only going to make 200 of them, but they're going to sell the pickups. And I think that is wild. But I would also say, I think we're going to get a Robin Ford McCarty on down the road. It's not going to be right away. I think what this is PRS admitting is that they're starting to realize the artist model guitars do better at a SE price point than they do the core level. Okay.
Yeah, it's tough. The DGT, the cheapest one, and I say cheap, is $4,000, and that's the one that has moon inlays and a relatively plain neck. If you want,
which is cheaper than a
bird
Silver Sky
inlays
for
and-
sure, or more expensive than a Silver Sky for sure.
yeah,
You
if you
know.
want the better looking one, it's 43 bottom of the barrel. 43. So, and Grissom, what's funny is if you look at the old pictures you referred to when he was early, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this. PRS didn't start with the bird pickups. It started with the dots and the moons, and then they went to birds. So
You mean the inlays, not the pickups.
the inlays, I'm sorry, you're right. And so when they went to the Birds, he actually had the moons on his early one. So the moons and the gold top is really the if you wanted to get his signature, which most people don't, like you said, most people don't care. They wouldn't know David Grissom if he was in front of them at line at Kroger, right?
Some people might,
Just
but I mean, like, vast
yeah,
majority of us, unless you're like really into the genres and stuff he was doing as studio work, you probably don't
right.
know who he is.
And that's why it's kind of funny. Um, it would not be something that anybody cares about. They want what they want to see, which I would think would be birds on the inlays. You know what I mean? I would think that because that screams PRS, where the moons don't really do that.
Okay,
They just look like weird dots.
let me put this out there in the universe. Core model, specifically listed on their website in the core level, so it means it's in the core tier of their business. Guitars.
You look at the DGT
with no, with
Oh.
artist attached.
Yeah.
DGT, Mark Tremonti,
Yep.
Paul Reed Smith, the Paul's guitar,
Yep.
which I would argue is basically the same thing.
Yep.
Robin Ford and Santana
Yep.
Retro, the Santana Retro.
Santana Retro.
The reason, yeah, it's a great looking guitar. But the reason why I say this is because those are the same names that have been in that line for years. John Mayer does not even have a core anymore. He has a bolt-on, which is now seen as a lower tier.
That's
and
right.
Mark Lettieri has a bolt-on. Right. Which we don't think in the next lineup we're going to see the Mark Lettieri SE. It's coming. I think we're going to see a lot of artist guitars coming out in the SE line just because from the think of it this way. If you are a professional level guitar player, maybe you don't care whose name is on the headstock or whatever,
Right.
and like whose signature it is or whatever. And most of them probably don't. But if you're a consumer and you're really into somebody, the market's going to be a lot smaller when you're producing $4,000 signature models for these people than if you could then you could do signature models for them on the back, right? So like I'm going to still make these guitars. We're going to make them incredibly limited runs like the Robin Ford. Which I don't know that they're not going to actually do a long-term Robin Ford model, but the first run is limited to 200. I'm just thinking of this from this perspective. Maybe they're looking at this as we'll do the real ones as a real small limited run thing, so we don't have to mess up production for the stuff that's like our bread and butter for the core line, and then we'll make a whole slew of imports that are really, really high quality because their imports are, let's face it, they're great. Imports that are artist models. I personally, I think it'd be a really smart business move for them.
I was thinking about what you just said. The fact is that the PRS Silver Sky, which is one of their most popular, obviously, or probably their most popular of the SE
I would say it's of the SEs, that is definitely the most popular right now.
That is probably the hardest guitar for places to keep in stock.
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked because I figured while we were talking about this, Sweetwater has none. More on the way, all 4 colors.
Well, the core Silver Sky was super popular when it first came out, and that quickly tailed off.
Yep.
And I think it's because a lot of the people that would be into that guitar already had guitars that sort of does what it does.
Right.
And like that, I mean, they sold, don't get me wrong, they sold a shit ton of those guitars.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality is, when you're at that price point, you don't sell as many. You just don't sell as many.
Yeah. I mean, when we first talked about those, 2018, when they first came out, those were in the 2,000, 2,200 category. They're at 27 and change now, right? Oh, that's that's not a cheap guitar, especially for a bolt-on. And now we look at the PRS SE, which the Silverside SE. I got to be honest with you, there's mine right there. Uh, that's a great guitar. I mean,
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have we already seen this trend? Because we have. Fender's doing it right now. Almost all of the Fender artist models are, especially the newer ones that are coming, like the Chrissy Hind and stuff.
made in Mexico.
They're made in Mexico.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a reality of people who want artist guitars are better, or well, the market is there at that price point. It is more there
Right.
than it is at the $4,000 price
They're
point.
better
And that's
served there.
look at all the Joe Bonamassa signature stuff coming out of Epiphone.
Every year he gets a new one,
Epiphone.
and every year
And-
they sell out of it.
And the target market for those guitars is not people 18 to 35, it's 35 to 65.
That's right.
So keep that in mind. Like they have sort of figured it out too, but they haven't been able to implement it across the line, probably because some artists are like, I'm not playing a fucking Epiphone. I don't want my name attached to Epiphone, which I get it. We don't see that over in Fender land because Fender has a USA import line, right?
Yep.
So it's a little bit different on the Gibson side of things, but I
Right.
think you're going to see more of this trend. Ibanez doesn't do this right now, but then again,
Yeah.
all of Ibanez's really expensive stuff comes from Japan. So
I do have to say this about Gibson though, which they've done smartly. I'm not going to say that they've done everything smartly. The when they do an artist model at the higher price points, what do? They really limit it. I mean, lately they've
well,
been
you're talking
limiting
about
them
custom shop level at that point because they don't
Right.
do artist models in Gibson really.
with the
Not
exception of the
not a
Slash
lot.
model.
Yeah, not a
Right.
lot.
Right. With the exception of the Slash model and the Tony Iommi, and they just, it's
They
funny
did,
because
they did the Angus Young for a while, but
Yep, and the Angus Young has gone. And they're doing the what's the one that's guy with the silver burst from Tool,
Adam Jones.
Adam Jones. So Adam Jones is also getting a regular standard model. But the truth of the matter is, most of their artist models are very small runs in the sub 1,000 category and put up at the high price point. We're talking about $10,000. The Jerry Cantrells,
Yeah.
Now a Jerry Cantrell is going to come out in the core line at some point.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is they don't really. But where did it come first? It came at the the SE. Yeah, it came at the Epiphone line. The Epiphones are out there with the Jerry Cantrells, and as a matter of fact, they're doing the Tool one. I think it's really cool. They've got the limited artwork, and they're doing limited numbers at Epiphone prices, Epiphone people. I think that's really cool. I think that's a neat thing that they're doing. But the point is, that's a good guitar because that is going to be a wall hanging. You do want people to see that. I don't know if you saw the back of that thing, but it looks really cool. I kind of, after I saw it, I was like, shit, I did want one. But I didn't think I wanted one until I saw that. The bees, the girl with the bees in the hair.
Well,
thought they were
wanting one doesn't mean you actually should buy one.
Right. But it would be a collector's piece and it would just sit on the wall backwards.
Yeah, that's
what's funny.
That's such a great idea to buy another guitar, Jim, as a collector's piece.
Yeah, I know.
What does that sound like? What does that sound like? That sounds like a collector.
I don't have enough. No, and that's why I didn't get it.
No, you didn't
'cause I
get
did
it
have an
because you didn't know about it until after the fact.
I got an opportunity. I turned it down. I just the point is that is a guitar that for collectors and for people that want to. That is a guitar that's a little more reasonable to do that with. But like you said, I think it's smart. I think the SE line is smart. I think the SE the Tremonti SE must sell like hotcakes too.
Yeah, I think at one point they said that it was their best selling model.
Yeah.
But now they've got a lot of other models. I'm sure the Silver Sky is outselling the Tremonti.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
I'm sure of it. as long as they can produce it fast enough, they get it right out the door. People love that guitar, and there's good reason. It's
Yeah.
well made. You got to give PRS credit at the SE level. Very well made guitars.
Um,
Moving along.
but I do think we're going to see this trend, and I don't know if I know that this PRE is changing direction. Like, obviously, that's me selling the show, right?
Right, right.
But in actuality, like, it makes sense for them to do that, to say,
Yep.
we're going to produce, let's say Vernon Reid wants another signature guitar, right?
Right.
So they make them another run of Velas, and then to launch a Vela SE line with the Vernon Reid signature, V-shaped neck and all that.
Yep.
It makes sense for them to do that. Like, instead
Yep.
of trying to make all the money up on the core side, which they'll make a little bit. I mean, every one of those Robin Ford 200 guitars, I'm sure, is gone. I'm sure they were gone before they hit dealers. But realistically, like, I don't know if they've done a 5,000 guitar run of those over, like the next 2 years, if they'd sold them all,
Right.
like, not in the same way, if they made it like a regular line. So what they would be better off doing is saying, this is a limited run. We're only doing 200, and then we're going to launch an SE line next year.
Right.
And you'll see that this is actually happening if you start seeing companies do that specifically. When they launch a guitar, they say, doing 200 USA, and then in 6 months you can expect the SE.
Yep.
If we see the Mark Letary come into the SE line, which I think is, I'd say it's 50-50. I think that's pretty clear indicator that PRS has realized the market for these signature guitars is definitely at a lower price point than the $2,500 price level. Try $2,500 and up. Because, I mean, all of those signatures I read off in the core line, those are $4,000+ guitars. Not a one of them is under $4,000.
Yep. Yep. With the exception of the Silver Sky.
That's not
core.
one of the ones I
And
read
it's not
off. That's not a
core.
core. That's not a core.
Bolt-on. That's right. Every bolt-on is well over $4,000. Some of them in the $5,000 category.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now,
Crazy.
here's another thing I want to point out. This is something that occurred to me about PRS line. I just want to talk about this before we switch to the next topic.
Okay.
The hollow bodies, right? I've never seen an artist endorsement for those. I know there are artists that play them. There's a couple of very specific people that love those guitars. I remember the guy in Incubus, Mike Eisinger. He was big on a hollow body.
Yep.
And I just kind of think it's funny that those don't have a celebrity endorser. I mean, we've got some McCarty endorsement guitars. We have Custom 24, single cut endorsements. We have the Santana, which is like its own thing.
And
but
if
we
you've never
don't
played a
have
Santana, that's a completely different feel.
But we don't have a hollow body 2 endorsement guitar.
Nope.
And I wonder if that's something that might come in the future. Not from a specific artist that you'd foresee coming.
Right.
And obviously the John Mayer had that Eagle guitar, the Modern Eagle or whatever.
Yeah, the Modern Eagle, which was, even at that time, I think the Modern Eagle, geez, that was a long time ago. And that was what, $5,000 or $6,000 at that time. And that's got to be 10 years or more now.
Yeah, that would have been, it would be about $7,000 or $8,000 if it was done today.
Yeah.
And the J mod is still out there, the amplifier. Some of the, because that was like a limited run amp too. Yep. But you can still find J mods at dealers because they were so expensive that no one, they just didn't sell them out.
Yep. I'm checking.
I think they're actually done with that thing. We've been talking about PRS a lot on the show lately. I want to say something. It's not because I bought a CE. It's because they're the big third company now. Yeah. I mean, Fender, Gibson, and it used to be Ibanez in my mind, but Ibanez has not been on top for quite some time. They've been sort of chasing something. And I feel like Ibanez is starting to make a turnaround. It's got some really good artist endorsements. They're starting to make some really interesting stuff. Yeah. Ibanez just came out with who's the guy that said the Boomer Benz thing? He has a new signature coming out. There's some people that have some buzz on that. I could give two shits. I think the guy's a jerk. He's a decent player, but I think he's kind of a jerk publicly.
Who's that?
What's his name? It's the kid that was talking about boober bends.
Oh, I do not like it. Periphery.
Yeah, well, it's Tim Henson.
Yeah.
No, let me just preface. Tim Henson's a fine guitar player.
Yeah. It's not my bag, but yeah.
Anybody who goes out and just again, remember the beginning of the episode where I made my apology? Anybody who goes out and slams other people for what they do on the guitar, shut up.
Right.
Just shut up.
Right.
Like no one cares. As long as they can play, like Tim Henson can play. I'm not going to talk shit about Tim Henson's playing.
Oh hell no.
No more than I would talk about anybody else. But
Nope.
I just preface that with like, if you're a jerk, you're a jerk. I mean, he seems to be okay now. He came out and basically apologized for being kind of narrow-minded, and I honestly, he deserves to be able to apologize, and people can accept that.
Mm-hmm.
I have done the same, and I would expect the same courtesy. But I just like, I don't know. There's not a lot about his music that really excites me, and I don't really think there's anything super specific or special about like his gear that excites me. But I know some people are getting really excited over that guitar. It's just like a silver looking RG, I think. Let's see, Tim Henson model. I just wanted to talk about it briefly because I want to acknowledge some of the other stuff that's coming up.
Who's got the signature?
Ibanez. Tim Henson. Yes, he's Ibanez. And then they also have that nylon string that they're doing for him too, which is interesting. It's the TOD-10 is the model that they've just announced. Silver with like Tree of Life, white pickups. It's basically a cross between. I think it actually is more like an AZ than an RG.
Looks more like a
It's an AZ.
It's kind of a cross between AZ and a what's it, Gem?
Yeah, well, it has. I think it has active pickups in it too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if this is your bag, I'll tell you this. I went out with my my Fishman guitar the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And I plugged my cable in right before I went on stage, and the battery was flashing red. And I was like, am I going to get through this? It's not flashing red anymore. I don't know whether my battery was dying or whether it's fine. So fuck it. I'm going to charge it up, not worry about it.
You made it.
Yeah, apparently. So, but
I just sent you a message.
That's a problem that we don't need to deal with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. What'd you send me the message at?
Discord.
Oh. I'm glad you sent me something. Okay. Let's take a few minutes and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
So Jim is still he's still on this outbreak here for a little bit, but I just want to talk a little bit more about this Ivanus because we were sort of talking about it on the sidelines while we were on our break. So this Todd 10, right, which is the Tim Henson model. It's a silver guitar. It has silver Tree of Life inlay, white pickups, silver hardware. It's an AZ, so kind of like a Strat. Has a roasted maple, neck. And it has the Fishman Fluence pickup system with two humbuckers. And so I don't think it has a 7-way. It has a 5-way. And then I think it has a voicing switch as well.
Right.
Which is the tone pot. You push it. I think it's a push-pull thing. Anyway, so something like that. I don't know if it's a push or whatever the deal is.
Right.
But and it does have a Godot T1502, which makes it more desirable than a lot of the AZ models because the Godot bridge is what they sort of knocked off in their design. But the Fishman Fluence pickup is fine. Okay, whatever. But here's where things get fun, right? So like they weren't really even having fun when they were writing the description for this shit. Because the American basswood body, it's just American basswood body. The American basswood body delivers a natural and flat tone. And what I told Jim was like, that's really what people want. a
Yeah, a
flat
flat
tone.
tone.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I know what the thought process is. We're putting these fluence pickups in it, and they're active like EMGs, and so it'll be best to
Yep.
put them in basswood because then they'll take on their full, sonic characters. That's not even how Fishman fluence pickups are supposed to work. So maybe he's got a different design. I don't know, because these are his specific model of Fishman fluence. But I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited about this guitar, not because of Tim Henson. It's bland. It's kind of boring. I mean, it's a typical super strat with Fishman fluence pickups, 24 frets, 24 and 3/4 or 25.5 inch scale rather. Um, Nothing really particularly exciting about this. Ebony fretboard and what they call the Tree of Death inlay. Um,
Oh, okay. Who is this guy?
Tim Henson, the guy from Polyphia. Um, I don't know. We were just talking we're reflecting on his playing style. And I wanted to share something before. And this is actually why I wanted to bring us back in on this conversation. For people like Tim Henson, right? Like, if you like Tim Henson, great. No problem with that. I think he's an incredibly talented guitar player. I think he's so talented that he's doing something that's not really going to leave a huge mark on the guitar community. Case in point, Tosin Abasi's out there, right? And Tosin Abasi has really invented a new way of approaching the guitar. But do you think everybody's going to be playing like Tosin Abasi in 10 years? I mean, ask yourself the question, and then I'm going to say a name that you may or may not be familiar with. They had sort of a similar kind of reaction to people in the 1980s, and that's Stanley Jordan. Okay, two-hand touch guitarist Stanley Jordan, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he can play melody and lead at the same time. He can play it like a piano," and it was like this whole thing, and everybody thought for like 10 seconds that he was the future of electric guitar, because everybody was going to pick up and adopt that style. It was obviously a natural progression from people like Van Halen, even though he was doing it long before, I guess in clubs and stuff. But it didn't take off that way. And he also was not the first person to do it. And the same is true of both Tim Henson and, because Tim Henson, like a lot of the playing techniques and style, his guitar playing comes from like some really extreme metal stuff. And I know that the production makes it seem like it's this modern dubstep hybrid with, metal and all that, but that's the production. What he's actually doing with the instrument, it's been done before. Same thing with Tosin. I mean, there's been people that do the slap guitar and think of things rhythmically like that. Now, I would say that Tosin is definitely probably the most extreme variant of that I've ever seen. But he's not the first dude to be doing that. So, I just caution people when you look at a new player and you see them doing some new technique and it's 90% of their style, which Tim Henson really hasn't. I don't think he's actually invented a technique. I don't know that he's actually developed any real specific. I'm sure there are specific techniques that guy uses that like other people don't do. But like, you don't look at somebody who's based their style on technique like that and go, they are going to reinvent guitar, because I can tell you in 10 years, not everybody's going to be a Tim Henson clone, and not everybody's going to be a Tosin Abasi clone. Now you can look to people in the past. There was a time period right after Jimi Hendrix's death for about 10 years where everybody wanted to be Jimi Hendrix. And Jim, you were alive in the 1980s, really in the late 1970s. I remember Sharon Osbourne actually in an interview suggesting that the reason they hired Randy Rhoads was because he wasn't a Hendrix clone. In other words, everybody they auditioned was a Hendrix clone, and he wasn't. And so he stood out like a sore thumb, and they liked it.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. So when I see a guitar like this, I go, this is very deeply reflective of a style of music that is very specific to the individual player. Like Tim Henson also is known for his like very individualistic way that he dresses and appears in public. And I feel that this is a reflection on that, right? And I don't know that this necessarily fits everybody else's aesthetic. Now, when we were talking about PRS a minute ago, we were talking about models, signature models, right? And we were talking about pricing. It is interesting that Ibanez really doesn't have monstrously expensive signature models.
Not
They're
really,
still
yeah.
sort of following the old method. So I'm just going to pull them up real quick just to see that they're kind of bucking that.
I think the
trend a little
Gem
bit.
is the most expensive signature model, really.
Well,
And
yeah,
one
the
of the
JS 1000 is expensive too, I believe.
yeah, and one of the
Yeah, so the Tim Henson is 1500.
oh, it's the what is it? The P.
The
It's his wife
TOD
name Pia.
TOD. No, oh, you're talking about Ibanez Pia. That's 3500.
Yeah, and one of Satch's guitars is really expensive. One.
The Joe Satriani electric guitar in Gold Boy finish is $5,800,
$5,800.
making it one of the most expensive Ibanez's ever produced.
Yep.
Um,
But other than
but
that
yeah,
one,
like here's Yvette Young. Her signature model's 1100.
Yep.
Nita Strauss, $800. Scott
Yeah, and
LePage,
her-
1500. Like
Yep.
if you go down through the list, like most of their signature models are not super pricey. The George
yeah,
Benson.
a more expensive model, but it's still 1,500 or 1,600, something like that.
So they aren't bucking the trend. Like
No.
they're trying to get their signature models down in price.
Yeah.
Nita Strauss does have a $3,000 signature model, but
Yeah.
the one that most people buy is the inexpensive one.
Is the
And for the person that has everything, you can get an Ibanez RGM S8, which is, unless you're playing metal, is about as ridiculous as having a 12-string guitar for a whopping $699.
Yeah. So I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
I like the new color of the Pia, the electric blue or blue powder.
This is the one I was looking for, by the way, the Josh Smith Flat 5, which is a pretty interesting instrument. $2,500.
Yeah.
He's their John Mayer, in my opinion.
That's right. I was going to say that puts
Like-
him right in line with a John Mayer.
Right. So not that he's, at the same level of player in terms of popularity, but he is certainly a guy that commands that kind of price point. From and demands that of his instrument, I guess. Martin Miller actually is a strange one. Internet sensation Martin Miller, but I know he's also a professional player outside of that. His signature is 2,800.
That's interesting. Not in a bad way, just interesting that Martin Miller has a signature. He's a really good player, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Guy,
I mean, he's
and I think it's a good thing that he's got a signature. I just think
Ibanez has a very, very deep signature roster. So like if you're involved in Ibanez AR, you get a signature model. Like it's they're not like other companies where they'll flow you guitars at a reduced rate at several tiers before you get to the point where they're like, okay, let's talk deal, Their AR package seems to be very, like, they might have a couple of levels, but you get a signature model pretty fast because they have a lot of people that I have never heard of on their roster.
Yeah. So I mean, if I wasn't deep in the YouTube communities, I never would have heard of Mark or the Miller guy.
Yeah. So all right, let's skip over the next topic. So now we're talking about. Let me set this up. There's a fire. Your house is burning down.
Oh boy, here we go.
This guy. Okay, so
this is gonna be tough for me.
So you run out of the house, right? You've got Drogon with you. Your son's already standing in the yard because he got out faster than you are because he's younger than you, so he can
He's younger,
outrun you.
and he lives at the front of the house. I live at the back of the house.
So you're standing in front of your house and you're watching the place burn down. You're like, oh my god, all my fucking guitars, and you're like, you're starting to freak out, and you're thinking about your homeowners or policy or whatever. And there's a the firefighter as they pull up. There's a firefighter running into your house. He's like, is there anyone inside? And you're like, no. And he's like, is there anything inside? I can bring one thing out. One thing. I know this is completely insane. I can bring you one thing out of your house. One guitar. Because I know I've seen you in a club. I've seen you play before, Jim. I can bring one guitar out of your house. which one would it be and why?
Oh God. This is so hard. It really is. I have that firefighter should have had 2 hands. No.
Well, the other one had the axe so it could cut the door
He's
down.
gotta, yeah, he's gotta slam the door down. This is a metal door. It really is. God, you know, I thought it was going to be easy because I knew this was coming. If
Yeah,
folks don't
the
realize
whole
it,
episode in the
I
back of his mind, he's like, God damn it, I hate
yeah,
him.
son of a bitch. All right, so I see the logical side of me wants to say my Amber Les Paul. I mean, that is the one. That is the one. But there's another side of me that says no. I want the 335. That is the one. And they're both versatile. And I'm gonna give. I'm gonna have to go, even though the 335 is my. It's got to be the Les Paul.
he's still doubting himself as he says
I
this. He's like, God damn it! Like it's
yeah,
got. Is it? Is it?
because I love that guitar. I can do a whole night on that guitar, and I've done a whole night on that guitar. It's so hard, but see, this one is irreplaceable for one reason and one reason only. See that top? I can't find that top. I'm not gonna get that top. And it is my Les Paul. It is my number one Les Paul. It is the one I play the most when it comes to the guitar that I do all night long at a gig. That's the one I usually play. If I play one guitar all night long, that's the one. And you would think it would be the custom, or it would be something else, but no, it is my Les Paul. That is actually my cheapest Les Paul. Of all the Les Pauls I have, it's the one I spent the least amount of money on. It is a factory bastard, right? And it's one of the early Gibson transfer guitar,
It's
when
one
they
of a
were going-
kind, though. It's one of a kind. You can't say that.
And I can't, that's right. And I could, with the insurance money, I could replace these. I can't replace that one the way it is. And my Slash runs a hard second to that because of the damn color scheme that nobody else wanted. It hung on the thing for 2 years. Nobody liked that color. I love that color. And now everybody sees it and goes, man, that is such a cool guitar. Because it lived in obscurity. It was one of those, oh, this was in the guitar store that nobody saw. Because luckily it was Guitar Center and you don't see pictures of the guitar. So unless you go into that Guitar Center and you're looking for that Slash model, you're not going to see it. So I would have to say it's that guitar. That's the one.
All right. So if I had to do this,
Yep.
now I could be a total dick. And
Yeah.
honestly, I thought about saying this. It was just like, fuck it, let him burn.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like, all right. I've had good moments with every guitar I own, right? The red PRS is hanging next to me. It's 35th anniversary model S2.
Yep.
I use that to record the CP.
Mhm.
I have the CE, the one I just got,
Mhm.
green, whatever. It's fantastic guitar. It's nice, beautiful.
Yeah.
The PRSs I don't care about in terms of that because I know I can go get another PRS.
Right.
All right. And I know it's going to
And
be
it will
reasonably consistent.
That's right. Consistent.
Consistently great, frankly.
Mhm.
To the point where people don't like them because they're so good. Which you can hear Thomas Blug talk about that. He says, I owned a PRS. I had a very expensive one. And he said I didn't like it because it was too perfect.
Yep.
It didn't have any character. Like,
Yeah.
guys, basically, and of course, I told my wife that story and she laughed. She said, I'm going to be real. She's like, why would you want something that's going to make it harder for you to do things? And I'm like, you're not wrong, but I'll share. I did a rehearsal this weekend for the band that I actually left.
Right.
I'm playing with Old Stumpy on a per pay basis. So
Okay.
when I'm getting paid, I'm playing with them. When I'm not getting paid, I'm probably not playing with them. Which it's going to be a wild gig. We're doing dude, I got the set list. I got to learn like 9 songs. It's crazy.
Yep.
Maybe more than that. But it's going to be an interesting, but I went to the gig, or I went to the rehearsal. I took my barefaced cab. I took my amp one, and I took my guitar and a cable. That was it. Actually, the cable and a speaker cable and, wall plug. That was it. I had everything I needed in my gig bag. And I pulled up there and go, where's your amp? And I'm like, it's in my bag. Like, what? And I pull this thing, 100-watt thing out, and I'm just like, plug it in. But that's just all aside, right? Like, so when you start talking about pedal board amps, everyone goes, they sound like crap. That white Stratocaster I have with Fishman pickups, through that amp on the neck position, I hit it once, and I was like, fuck me, that sounds good. Kyle, the band leader, turns to me and says, holy shit, that is the best sound I've ever heard you make. And I go, pretty damn good. And he goes, that sounds really good. He's like, you're bringing that, right? And I said, yeah, I'm bringing that. And I've had that same experience at Open Jam. That guitar, that amp one, that cabinet. There's something about it. It is this interesting mix of like the Hendrix thing, the SRV thing. And then when I go to the bridge pickup, it just screams like Josh Smith, right? And that's without the, I have the Chula boost, and I don't even have that. I didn't even have that with me. And it just did that thing. And I just sat there. I was just kind of floored. I never hit the boost on the guitar, like just bridge pickup, neck pickup all day long. And it sounded fucking great. Nothing I could do to damage it. Now, here's the reason why I think that's probably the guitar I would tell the guy to save. Because I think it would just be a roll of dice and how I'm feeling that day, to be honest with you. I would actually probably, as I said, I'd probably just say let him burn. It's not worth, my guitars are not worth somebody risking their life for them. Right. And that would make me feel incredibly guilty to even suggest that. But if I had to, I'd say grab the white Strat, because that was my first real guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only one that I've had for 20 years. It is the only one that plays like that now. And it still fucking sounds good. I put those pickups in it. I put that neck on it, and it's ready to rock for another 25 years. I'm just being completely honest. It is a dog shit body. It is a dog shit body. It's got a line down the middle of it. You can see it when it's hanging on the wall from where the wood is kind of going, doing this. But there is something special about that guitar, and I don't know what it is. And so I had good time do all the work, right? And I was there with Pat the other day, and I was picking up my PRS from its first setup, and I'm talking to him, and I go the CE, and I'm talking to him, and we're talking about setups and stuff, and actually almost became a topic for the show. But if we're gonna do that, Pat's gonna be on the show because he could shed some light on some things that happen as a result of him being a store owner and doing setups for people and stuff. But I mentioned to him that I didn't like Strats. I was never I was not a fan of vintage Strats. I did not like Strat single coil pickups. I played them because they were cheap and I could afford them. And I was like, I got used to them. And over time, like I sort of made little incremental changes to make them not like Strats anymore. So like, and that was the dumbest first off, for anybody listening to this show, that's the dumbest fucking thing you can do, is to take a guitar and try to make it something it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just absolutely stupid. You're just beating yourself mercilessly for no reason to do that. You run into people who put Les Paul pickups in Strats and they go, "Mouse sounds like a Les Paul." No, it doesn't. Stop it. It doesn't play like a Les Paul either. So like, that's a whole other ball of wax. And because of that, you're never going to play that guitar like a Les Paul, and therefore it does not sound like a Les Paul. That's a whole other functional argument. But my point is, this guitar is I brought it home. I got the pickups installed in it. I put the neck pickup on in the store. I was like, it's okay. Put the bridge pickup on. Yeah, that sounds really good. The bridge pickup's great. Humbucker, right? Sounds great. It's Fishman humbucker. Neck pickup. It's typical Strat neck pickup. No big deal. Just a Strat neck
Hmm.
pickup. And actually, quite frankly, that's kind of how I feel about single coil neck pickups. But I rely on that. So I
Hmm.
took the guitar home and I live with it. And when I was there at the shop the day that I first got it, Pat told me, he said, that guitar is like a little screamer. There's something special about it. And I brought it home and I've had it for several months. I've taken it out, done a lot of stuff with it. It's got 24-inch, 24 and 3/4 inch scale neck. So it's, not the typical thing. I'm sitting there talking to Pat the other day and he goes, are you talking about that white Strat? And with as many guitars go through that store, he
Yep.
remembers that guitar.
Yep.
And I said, yeah. And he said, that thing is fucking killer, man. He's like, I really like that guitar.
Yeah.
And hearing that from somebody who handles guitars all day long, you
Yep.
got to realize, and a guy that's played, professionally and everything else, you got to realize that means something,
Yeah.
And for me, like, I always knew it, like in the back of my head, because even when I was playing as a kid, everybody who played that guitar was like, I really
Mhm.
like that guitar. I really like the guitar. Do you ever consider selling that? I've had offers, a couple offers, with the
Mhm.
old neck, which is actually on this thing up here. And I always said no. It's like that's my main guitar, and I did like it. I was very, very fond of it, but it was a
Mhm.
relationship thing. It wasn't that I thought was good.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I played other strats, and I realized like that was the one I compared a lot of stuff to,
Yep.
mostly because it was the one I had the longest, right? But now I'm starting to realize like there is something special about that one specifically. Something about the body. It's maybe a piece of shit. It's a reject. Like it's a throwback
Yeah.
for sure. And it's been beat to hell. Man, it was the greatest feeling. I went to Open Jam the other night. I was throwing fucking cables on top of that guitar. I just didn't give a shit. Like I was like, screw it. Like if it gets damaged, it gets damaged.
Yeah.
But it just
That is, I haven't had um the Les Paul as long as you had that Strat, obviously not nearly. But the fact of the matter is that it is the one that when I put it in the case, I mean, the case is the only case that has stickers on it.
yeah.
It's the only guitar that I have personalized. Okay. It is the one guitar that has, when you look at the back, it doesn't look like a smooth glide. That there's some scratching and some rubbing, and when you look at the neck, you can see where I play. That is the guitar that gets the love and attention, so to speak, the most. Yeah, I'll tell you, similar to what you just said, I was playing a gig and the guys in the band, we're all getting ready to do sound check. I plugged my custom into the Tumnus, into the Marshall, and I hit. We were doing for a sound check. We did for my vocal. We did "Hurt So Good" by John Mellencamp. And I hit that, and then when I hit that the second time, they said, "Hey man, what are you doing right now?" And I said, "That's this guitar to this pedal to this." They said, "That's it. That's you. That's the sound. That is the sound." So it is funny that sometimes it finds you. Everybody loves it when I play that guitar. I don't take it to gigs as often because that's an expensive guitar. I do play it out. I have played it out, and I will play it out. But that's not the one that I play all the time. That is second in line or third in line. I actually play this one more than any of them. So recently I've been playing the Slash, try to get that dialed
Hmm.
in, keep tweaking it, dial it, tweaking it now. But I always go back to that. And so it's just one of those things where um I I think that there's a special it's not a bond of emotion because just like my lizard does not care about me. My lizard hates my guts. Okay. It hates my guts. It does not care about me whatsoever. I put a tree in there, a new tree for her. I spent all this money on a new tree. I'm the one that puts bugs in there. I'm the one that makes sure. And she does not care. When I went to take her out of that cage and I put my hand in there, she went to bite me. It's like, get away from me! You're a freaking human being. Um, there is the guitar doesn't care about me. I know that. I know it doesn't give a shit. It just is what it is, so to speak. I hate that saying, but that's probably the most. It's probably right in this case. But there is nothing for me that in my heart replaces the feel I get when I play that one versus any of the others. And I just like anybody else, I'm always like, oh, come on, there's got to be something. No, there's not. There's just not something better.
Well,
It's like an old pair of socks.
there is one dark horse in my argument, which I went on that whole
Uh-huh.
tirade about the white Strat, but
Yep.
the S500 means a lot to me
Yeah.
because, and I've told that story on the show before because of
Yeah.
the circumstances. My guitar teacher had one just like it, and I wanted one
Mhm.
forever. And I got enough money that I ordered one USA, and that was the first time I'd ever ordered anything like that. It was an expensive purchase for me. And when
Yeah.
I got it, it was so fucking good. And it's still so fucking good. So I just don't know. I mean, like, honestly, I can sit here and pretend like I would save that
That's
one or the other
exactly.
one, but it's like you get down to those questions and it's like, dude, in the heat of the moment, who knows?
Who
Right?
knows? I probably would shout out 335. No, let's fall. No.
But that's why I
Get
said,
the-
like, just let them burn. If I was meant to have them, then they wouldn't, the house wouldn't have burnt down.
we're
You
having
know?
we're having an interesting conversation because last week Dylan Talks Tone. Dylan and I talk,
Yeah.
and Dylan Talks Tone was talking about how because he's selling his collection, almost every guitar, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't have a single guitar I'm attached to." He goes, "I don't get attached to that stuff," and he said, "I don't care. Every one of them could get replaced. They all don't mean anything to me as far as that goes." And I said to him, I said, I wish I could have, and he told me, on the side, that was a hot take thing for him to say to get people to kind of react. But when he said that, I started to think, because I'm a logical guy like he is. I'm not as emotional. And so I thought to myself, because I'm not emotionally attached to this computer or this desk or this chair.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of emotional
I don't-
attachment to my instruments either. The ones I
My-
have an emotional attachment to stick around.
Right,
That's
right.
basically, you know.
Yeah, that's basically what it'll come down to. And so I'm not emotionally connected to these Funko Pops or none of this.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself as I sit here, because my wife is emotionally attached to like a desk. There's a desk she
Yeah.
loves. Her grandmother left her this desk and this chair.
But
And I'm
some
like,
of that is attached as an attachment to something that happened, right?
right. It's a throughput. Like if my
Yeah.
father had given me Les Paul, it'd be different. But I said to him, I said, he was talking about any of these could be replaced. I said to him, I said, you know what? I wish I could tell you that my collection could be replaced, that everything I have, and I'll call it a collection, could be replaced. But I'm like, I couldn't replace my ES335 because I was working Guitar Center at the time. Now the prices have gone up, and I'm not working Guitar Center. And even with the price, I couldn't afford to buy it again. I couldn't afford to buy my white Les Paul again because the prices have gone up. So now the used guitar prices have followed in suit. We already talked about my Les Paul here. My Slash Les Paul has got a weird color underneath the thing. So when you see it in the light, you see it in person, you go, "That's weird," but that's what I like about it. And it's not. So the Slash, if it was. I don't want to wish anything bad on myself, but if I dropped it and snapped a neck or whatever, well, that sucks. But I look at those three and I go, that is really the ones I could buy. I know for a fact I could buy another PRS SE like that, and it would be just the same. It would be just as good. No worse. No
You know
better.
what? This is good.
Honestly,
I could say without a doubt it'd be the Strat, the white Strat I was talking about. And the reason is one of a kind.
Mhm.
I made that.
Right.
Like I had somebody put it together for me, but I made that. And
Right.
I can't say that even my S500, it's not the guitar that my instructor had. I
Right.
can go to the custom shop at G&L and spend $3,000 and have them make
And get
me and probably
that's
get
right.
one in nitro. So get it
Yeah.
like it what they were in the the early 90s with
When he got it.
a thinner polyurethane, you
Right.
know. Um so I mean there's that.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a really hard, uh, difficult position to be in to say that, okay, like if it, let's be a little more realistic. Let's say financial hardship
yeah, you got to
crushed.
sell everything to pay your bills.
Gotta sell them all but one. Which one are you going to sell? That would be the one, the part that would be the hardest. That would be the thing that would hit the most right in the kisser, power right in the kisser, so to speak. So I and like I said, in that case, it would be a real hard decision to make. It would still be necessary, but at least it's more realistic. The old desert island thing and all that other crap. I'm like, no, something happens. You have to put your mom in hospice, or you have to.
But people have had this situation that Jim is describing happen. I
Yeah,
mean, I know people who have actually sold all of their stuff and
yep.
literally been guitarless for a while.
I know
So,
people that during the pandemic, we both do,
mhm.
and that's heartbreaking.
They were selling guitars to pay the bills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or they weren't going to eat. They weren't going to have heat. They weren't going to have a roof over their heads. So
Okay.
mm,
Let's
tough.
get more positive. Let's talk gig
Yeah.
reports. Jim, do you want to
All
talk
right.
about your gig report first, or do you have one? Or
I honestly, you know what? I didn't have a gig this weekend. We have a gig coming up the 31st, but I'm a little heartbroken over what's going to happen. So my co-guitarist Joe is leaving the band, and he made the announcement the other day. By the time this drops, it'll be public knowledge. Um, and I'm heartbroken because he and I have a connection musically, or at least I have a connection with him musically. So, I mean, I can't speak for him,
right.
And I told him, I said, I'm going to be heartbroken. He goes, Jim, I don't want to leave, but he's got a baby coming, and he and the wife, obviously, and there's a lot coming up, and he's got a lot that he's got to get done. It's too much on his plate to continue to play with the band. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I respect it. And he goes, hopefully in a few months or a year, I can come back, and if there's a place open for me. And I said, yeah, I would hope. I said, so what we're going to do is, and this is the other side of it. This is the other heartbreaking side of it. I have to sit down and learn all of his parts for as many of the songs as I can get, so that I can then pick them up. He goes, Jim, because he was saying to me, I said, man, you are so good at blah blah blah, and you're so good blah blah. He goes, Jim, you know what your problem is? And I said, what's that? He goes, you don't think you're good at anything. He goes, you do fine. You do better at the songs you know than I do. He goes, you have your style, and I have my style. My style fits Leonard Skinner and that type of thing. Your style fits the pop and the other sensibilities. And I said, and we both hate the song Paralyzer, right? And he goes, yes, we both hate the song Paralyzer. So
What a way to bond.
The lead singer loves singing it, and we hate playing it. Hate playing it. That said, we do it every time. We do it like professionals, and we don't, But we always, if he goes, what song should we get out of the set list? We play Paralyzer. Get Paralyzer. Just like a needle. He's like, I'm gonna put it back in. So maybe we should find another song we hate. But anyway, so the point is, he said, Jim, you play a lot of these songs better than I do. And he goes, because that's your bailiwick. And so it made me feel good about myself. But, I have utmost respect for him. And so that was really nice of him to say. I don't think he realized how much that really meant to me. That's my gig report.
All right.
I am not looking forward to my next gig because I know I'm going to cry at the end of it. Okay, go ahead.
My gig report's fun because I'm going to talk about the live stream.
Okay.
So Jim, you were there.
I was there.
You were there in spirit.
I was there with a dozen people.
A dozen other people. We had about, I think we had 80 people go through over the course of the hour. We were live. We played 8 songs, 7 songs, 2 new ones.
Mhm.
And so let me explain how this all worked out for the band side of things. So we go out to this place, this guy's house, and we go into his basement. We're there at 6:30. We don't go on until 8:30. So we get there at 6:30. We do a sound check, start setting up our gear, do sound check. We play basically half the set during sound check, and we get our headphone mix on and stuff, and then we get a 15 to 20 minute break before showtime. And so here's the fun. Okay, drummer shows up. So our arrangement with our drummer, this is not a secret. I can share this with our listeners, is that we don't pay as much money as if he doesn't bring his drums. So they have a house drum kit, which isn't bad, and he's going to use the house drum kit. So he comes in actually about 20 minutes before showtime. It was not 20, it was about an hour and 20 minutes. So before he's left, we get or not showtime, but the sound check. I get a text message that's going to the group saying, "Hey Jerry, you might want to bring your cymbals. The cymbals here suck." So Jerry comes in, and they're like, "Did you bring your cymbals?" And he goes, "No, I'm going to use your cymbals." And so I'm sitting there thinking, so you didn't ask us because we would have paid you to bring your cymbals, number one. Number two is you don't really want to put your best foot forward. This is kind of the way it's going through my head, right? You don't want to put your best foot forward for us, which suggests that you don't think, we're worth it. But then it dawns on me, he doesn't care because he's looking at it and going, I can make your shit cymbal sound good. It doesn't matter. And I will tell you, he made their shit cymbals sound good. In fact, if you watch the video, he literally puts a stick right through the fucking china because it's already cracked, and he cracked it in half. It was done after the show. And he wasn't hitting it that hard, but he hit it in just the right way, and it went, his stick, he goes ding, 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 whoosh, right through it. And I've seen people do that numerous times over the years, but in this particular instance, it was quite comical because he was not playing it hard, and he made it sound good even when it was cracked. Okay, when they took this thing off, the thing was basically like a wedge shape came out of it. But he made the cymbals work, which I was fucking really impressed with.
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
And actually, the snare drum was another thing. So one of the guys brings in the snare drum. It's this brand new snare drum. It's like a 14-inch steel snare drum, like, big mama. Puts it on there. This thing sounds like shit. And he's, tuning it, trying to get it to sound good and everything. And then basically the guy that runs the venue comes over and he says, Jerry, he says, that snare just sucks. Just let's here, try this one. And Jerry wants a big snare, and rightfully so, right? We're playing rock music. And He hands him it's not a piccolo, but it's like a small wooden snare.
Yeah.
And he plays a little bit on it, and he goes, trust me. He's like, that thing's going to sound good. And Jerry plays it for a minute. He goes, yeah, it's better than the other one. So he said, fine. And so we do our sound check. And so what happens is first we play a song, right? Everybody's got the same headphone mix. We're all listening to basically what the left and right output is going to be for the show audience. And then he comes over and he gives us the breakdown of how we're plugged in to the system. And we have the little Behringer headphone mixer. So you go in there and you can set your monitor mix. My monitor mix, so I'll describe for you, was basically a little bit of drums. I had, which he told us most people don't put any drums. I had, because you're in the room with the drums, right? I had the drums set at like 2 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 10. I had the guitars set about 50%. I had the bass set about 50%. Okay. And during the course of the show, I actually turned my guitars up a little bit because they weren't loud enough in my ears because I was standing next to drums. So Tony uh, explains after we finish the sound check that he literally cannot hear his bass. So we walk over and we inspect Tony's monitor mix, and we find that his bass is set to 10. Okay. It is all the way the fuck up. And he can hear it. It's there. It's in his mix. I hear him playing, and I'm listening through the headphones. And I'm like, weird. He couldn't hear it. And I think it's just because this is something I'd never realized, but I think bass players sometimes feel their bass more than they hear it. And for him, that was a bit of a challenge for this whole thing. And I think also Jerry was having some issues hearing Tony's bass as well, but not the same kinds of issues. Because Jerry and I compared notes, and it's so funny because we literally had the same monitor mix. Like, shot for shot was identical, which was hilarious because it's like, why would that be? But it's just, we hear things the same way, I guess. And we listen for the same things in the music. So, but bear in mind, he's got his own in-ears with 5 drivers or 7 drivers, and I'm just using a pair of cans. So, showtime comes, we start playing. It's not a train wreck. I'm definitely having some struggles. I can tell Jerry's having some struggles, and I can tell that Tony's also having some struggles. So we get through this whole set, and it went pretty well. I got to say, I was really scared to be playing 2 new songs without recording them first. They're like still basically in writing, but the reaction to those was extremely strong. Our mix engineer was there. Gordon Gidluck from Gidluck Mastering was also in the online audience. Joanne actually came out. I was our mastering engineer or our mixing engineer, and actually like was on the live stream because he was there in person. And it was. I would just want to say I was like so glad that he was there because he was a silent partner in this, and has been very, very supportive of a lot of our ideas and our process. And I think he's looking forward to working with us again. I think we're probably going to end up working with him again. So, but yeah, so the show was a big success. We walk out of the venue and like we had 230 listens, whether they hate listens or whatever, within the first couple of days. I don't know where we're sitting right now. We're probably rapidly approaching 300 at this point. Which is, for a small venue like this, for a small local band that was literally playing their first live performance outside of an open jam. It's pretty good. Well. I would say we did a really good job promoting the goddamn thing. And I want to thank everybody in our listenership who showed up. And if you didn't, you can check out the show, Destiny Unraveled, on YouTube. Look for Destiny Unraveled Live, and you'll find it at the Bunker. And you can watch the show after the fact. It's fun. You get to see my new green PRS CE, which everybody has seemed to be like in love with that thing. And you get to see me make a complete ass out of myself, for which it was, worth apologizing at the beginning of this episode. But
yeah, you did well.
Just in terms of upcoming gigs, like I'm doing the Old Stumpy thing on the 30th at Rookies here in Roselle. So if anybody local wants to come out and see that, that's where you got to be. I would caution you that this is not the kind of show that like what Destiny Unraveled puts on. What we put on at Destiny Unraveled is like its own thing. It's a rock show for sure. And we treat it as such, whereas this will be more like bar band kind of stuff. Although it will be decidedly more rock showish this time. We're going to be doing, I got to look at the set list right here. We'll be playing Soul Shine. We'll be playing, All Along the Watchtower will be in the set this time. This is the first time we've ever played that with this band. So lots of new music in this set list. There's music from Taj Mahal in here.
Really?
Yeah, we're playing a Taj Mahal song, and then we're playing some old favorites too. There's some stuff in here that we've played before, but it's clear that we have some new songs we're adding to the set list.
So you did do 7 songs. I'm looking at the thing.
Yeah.
So you did 7 songs. As I was watching, Because there was about a dozen of us in the place, and so we're all sitting. It's a big table, and I should have taken a picture. There's a big table of us sitting, and I've got my iPad sitting on one end of the table, and that's how we heard it. I had my little life jacket Bluetooth speaker
Yeah.
on the thing, and nobody told us to turn it down or shut it off or that's too loud. Please don't. People enjoyed it, so it was a good time and really enjoyable.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad people enjoyed it. I've had a lot of good
Yeah,
reaction to it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and be like, "Holy shit, I didn't know you guys were doing this."
yeah,
Somebody I know from several years ago reached out to me and was like, "Man," he's like, "You guys have really got something going here."
yeah,
Um, yeah, we're still building a thing, and we're still working through some of the challenges. Obviously, we're three musicians. We all have differing talents. So some of us are better at
yeah,
some things than others. There may be some changes by the time we get to the next EP in terms of like how we're delivering our message, and I won't go too
yeah.
much into that, but we had a meeting the other day, and actually like it was really positive, and came away with some new direction for how we're going to be trying to deliver things. Um,
Right,
we have pretty concrete marketing strategy at this point to get our name out there and hopefully get some more gigs lined up. And I think
yeah,
I think it's going to be a good year for that band.
yeah.
Um, so we'll see. And then, of course, I always have the potential for another solo project. And
Right,
I may or may not have been thinking about that more recently. And it has nothing to do with the band. It's just
yeah.
there's some things
Something
that
you want to do.
I don't think I want to do in the band that I think that I want to do. And I'm kind of thinking
Right, right.
maybe it's time to start sketching
Time
some
to
of those ideas out. So
do that. Yeah.
anyway,
All right.
I think we're wrapping up, right? I mean, you got nothing else to
Yeah.
share? Nothing? You got anything to plug
No,
before we go? All right.
no,
Uh,
nothing to plug. I wish I did. I wish there was some plugs I had going on. Maybe hair plugs. The way my hair's been going.
Jesus,
But no, nothing. I'm getting a haircut next week. It's terribly.
I'm going, dude. Look at this. I'm
Yeah,
going
it's a year.
on. Where are we at now? I have not cut my hair since November of 2019.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same. Um, but I'm going short this time. I'm going to see what happens. Sick and tired of having to wear a hat every time I uh, don't want to, comb my hair out for something, and I get hat head,
Oh,
and then
this definitely is work.
yeah,
The fact that I have to
and
use a blow dryer, that's work.
yeah, I don't I don't like using a blow dryer. I have a blow dryer for my dog and certain other projects, and not for this.
Yeah, just use
Um,
the heat gun.
yeah, I mean that's really what it is. It's a heat gun. With the dog, it's on low. It's just blowing him to get the hair out. He's a short-haired dog, but he's certainly a good dog. But yeah.
All
So
right.
anyway,
Well, I've been David,
I've been Jim.
and tonight we've been Practical Guitarists.